news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, February 2nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -1 degree, in Smiths Falls, 0. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It's been 5 days of convoy trucks and their supporters occupying downtown Ottawa, and residents have begun picking up their own protest signs, taking a counter message to the truckers and the police. Now, we can tell you that 2 people are now facing charges in connection to this protest. With the latest, here's City News reporter Jason White.
Truckers laid on their horns last night as a single man held high a sign with a simple message: "We will not be held hostage in our own city." Other convoy members on foot surrounded the man, just inches away with no masks, trying to block out his sign with theirs. Some on social media celebrating the man's courage to confront the convoy peacefully. Many downtown have had it with the way police are handling the convoy, and a small group took that message to police headquarters last night with their own protest. A convoy truck trying to drive down a residential side street yesterday, blocked by 4 women who stood in the road and gave the trucker a thumbs down every time he honked. Ottawa police now say they have made arrests in connection with the convoy, announcing last night charges against 2 men. 37-year-old Andre J. Lacasse of Ottawa, charged with bringing a weapon to the convoy. 29-year-old Matthew Dorkin of Ottawa, charged with mischief, alleged to have happened on Saturday, but police say they didn't arrest him at the time so as to avoid worsening a confrontation. But the convoy continues, and the Rideau Centre now says the mall will stay closed until at least Sunday. Jason White, City News.
Now more on the ongoing protest with Mayor Jim Watson coming up shortly on the Rob Snow Show. We're also hearing Toronto may be about to receive a taste of this protest with a possible weekend gathering at Queen's Park. Here's our Kevin Meisner with that story.
In addition to the metal barriers normally in place at the entrances to Queen's Park here, heavy circular concrete planters are now in place. They're blocking access to the parking area at the front of the building here, the entrance to the Legislative Building. Now, the move is part of security measures in place ahead of a possible trucker protest on Saturday. A flyer has been making the rounds online, calling on truckers and supporters to meet at various locations in Toronto, in fact at 6 malls, before staging a rolling convoy to Queen's Park for the noon hour. At Queen's Park, Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News time 9:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A huge area affected with this storm for us today, tomorrow, even into Friday, from Windsor all the way to Ottawa and beyond. We'll have a mix of rain and snow today, 2 to 5 centimeters, a light southwest wind, the high near +1. Could collect another 5+ centimeters of snow tonight, with the temperature near 1 degree through the evening and then slowly dropping. For today, the high +1.
And right now it's -1 degree in Ottawa. It's 0 in Smiths Falls. A couple of multiple medal winners will carry the Canadian flag on Friday in Beijing. Women's hockey captain Marie-Philippe Poulin and short track speed skating star Charles Hamelin will be Canada's flag bearers at the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics. Poulin has won 3 Olympic medals. Hamelin has 5, including 3 gold. She is calling this honor a pinch-me moment. City News time 9:03. Former Edmonton MP Kerry Diotte says a former military man, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole, should really know when he's lost the battle. O'Toole will find out today if he's going to be ousted from his job. The Tory caucus will hold a secret ballot vote. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's got the news and the views.
He's got views on the news.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Groundhog Day. It's Groundhog Day. Hey, I have breaking news for you. Every freaking day is Groundhog Day. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. Groundhog Day. What is it? Day 6 of, what do you want to call it? The protest, the occupation, the hostage taking? And that's not the only big story of the morning. Right now, Conservatives are starting their caucus meeting with the continued leadership of Aaron O'Toole very much in doubt. And we'll be all over both of these stories all morning long, and to be sure, I want to get your take on them too. Coming up, as you heard just a few minutes from now, the mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, going to join us. And of course, we have many questions for the mayor, such as just how long are people supposed to put up with this sort of thing happening in their city? The protest, the noise, the traffic, the belligerence, the business closures, but almost a week of this now. And I mean, you hear it in our newscasts. You see it on the television. People in the vicinity of this protest, they're at their wits' end. And my concern is, and, it's starting to happen already. A big worry of mine is the longer this goes on and the longer the residents feel neglected, the greater the chances they're going to take matters into their own hands. And what's bad already could only get a lot worse. That's my fear. The mayor, over the course of his career, has talked about law and order, the need to invest in the police, to hire more police officers, continually increase the police budget. But it's evident to anyone who's been paying attention, the residents who are paying big taxes to fund a police service, they're feeling let down by their police service. They are. Whether that's fair or not, they are. So just what is the game plan here? I mean, is this going to be life in downtown Ottawa for the foreseeable future? The Freedom Convoy issued a news release this morning. A fifth grader would have a better grasp of grammar. They say they're not going anywhere. They plan to, quote, remain in Ottawa for as long as it takes for governments across Canada to end all mandates associated with COVID-19. And, quote, organizers estimate the number of participants in the Ottawa protest to be in the tens of thousands. Well, that's a lie. It's maybe a few hundred people. Quote, we are now well organized and are settling in until Canada is a free nation again, end quote, which is, it's absurd, right? It's nonsense. Until Canada is a free nation again. They've come to the city. They've spent the better part of the last week, parked illegally, drinking in public, smoking dope in public, violating every noise bylaw there is, singing, dancing, basically running riot throughout the downtown core like they were raised in the woods by a pack of wolves. And they're complaining that they have no freedom. Just a joke. And now, you know what has set me off this morning? Is I hear in the news they're messing with Briere. Briere Continuing Care runs the Briere Hospital and the St. Vincent Hospital. And I have a soft spot for that place. And I know a lot of my listeners have had loved ones who've received care at both of those institutions. I helped raise some money for that place in the past. Got to know a lot of people who work there and at the St. Vincent Hospital. And these people, they have no idea the inconvenience that they are causing. Grief. The grief that they are grief. Talk about being robbed of freedoms. What about the freedoms of the nurse who works in the palliative care unit of the Briere Hospital? Helping people in literally their dying days. Okay. What about the freedom of that nurse to get to work in the morning? What about the freedom for the relatives who want to be able to say goodbye? Hold the hand of a dying loved one. at the Briere Hospital, or a care worker at St. Vincent's taking care of a patient with some of the most complex medical issues in our community. And you've come to the city and you're parked in the middle of the street and you're whining about your freedoms being taken away. Just beyond selfish. You rebels without a clue. Anyway, we're going to get into all of this with the mayor. And the mayor asked them nicely enough, okay, you've had your say, time to go. But they've clearly said, well, we're not going anywhere. So what do you do now? What do you do now? Also this morning, this is going to be interesting to get an update from Alberta. We're going to go to City News in Calgary. City News 660 Calgary. Speak with reporter Tom Ross. Been covering this other blockade at a key border crossing between Canada and the United States, about 3 hours south of Calgary. The RCMP tried to bust that up yesterday. No success. It's lawless. It's lawless is what it is. So we're all over that. The other big story of the morning is what's happening with Erin O'Toole. We have some experts lined up, ready to go. Caucus meeting getting underway. It's virtual. And O'Toole's leadership is hanging in the balance. My own opinion, I could be totally wrong by the end of business today, but I just don't see how he survives the day as leader of the Conservative Party, even if he manages to squeak out a win here. I mean, the damage has been done, you would think. I mean, can he really lead a political party if, half or almost half of his MPs don't support him? How do you manage something like that? How could you manage something like that? There would be so many people in his own caucus who'd be out to do him in, right? Non-stop leaks. It would be like drip, 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 drip. So we'll ask our political pundits what they think, but I think his time as leader is likely measured in hours now. And then the questions are, then what and who? Especially if O'Toole does, let's say he wins by a razor-thin margin, and he decides to stick around, fight it out, you are looking at the disintegration of the Conservative Party. I think it would break up again. And then if he's tossed out, well, who's next? And is that person necessarily going to be any better? Because there's no guarantee of that either. It could be much worse. Boy, it's just a red-hot mess on the blue team. And what a gift to Trudeau and the Liberals. They must be loving this, right? Civil war in the Conservative Party. So I want to get into both of these stories with you this morning. Day 6 of the protest, occupation, hostage-taking, and the O'Toole drama. Hope you'll call, comment on both of those stories this morning when we do the talkback hour coming up between 10 and 11 o'clock. An hour of opinions, an hour of phone calls. Hottest hour of talk radio in town. Just ask around. 750-1310. With the convoy, I would especially like to hear from people from our city who have been impacted by this, who have had your days and nights disrupted. Just give David the highlights. Happy to put you on the air. And on the O'Toole saga, what do you see happening with that? Let me know. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson coming up next on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcoming back to City News, Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. Good morning, Your Worship.
Good morning, Rob.
Well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 6 days of this now. 6 days. What do you think about where things stand right now?
Well, there's a slight improvement. You know, the numbers are starting to go down. The number of trucks leaving the city continues, which is a good sign. But there's another core group. Obviously, they want to dig in for the long run, which is not acceptable, and that is not going to happen. This is going to have to end at some point. And you know, the very fact that the police have 13 active investigations. They've charged 2 people, including one person, with a weapons offense, bringing a weapon to a public meeting. This is one of the reasons why I think the police are acting prudent and cautious. And lots of people want us to go in, you know, guns a-blazing to break this up and get tow trucks. And it's still a very volatile situation, even though the numbers have come down. And we have to rely on our police to do their job of gathering intelligence. They have contingency plans. When to launch those contingency plans is up to the chief, obviously, based on his hourly updates he gets from the field. But, you know, the letter that the truckers sent out that you read part of is really, it rings hollow. You know, one of their lines was, our message to the citizens of Ottawa is one of empathy. We understand your frustration. No, they don't, because they're not listening, you know, to the people. They're not listening to officials to say, get out of the residential neighborhood, stop honking the horn at all hours of the night, keeping your vehicle running and, you know, diesel fuel going through the air, and be respectful of everything, as you pointed out, from people trying to get into Briere to businesses trying to open. You know, we sometimes in the midst of this forget we're still in the midst of a pandemic, a global pandemic, where people are dying. They need their test sites. They need their booster shots. And there's no empathy or understanding on the part of this group. They're acting like boors and bullies. And, you know, I'm glad that we're starting to see some of them leave. One would assume they have to go back and start earning a living as opposed to harassing our residents.
Well, they've raised a lot of money. That's the thing.
Well, that's, you know, it seems pretty sketchy. I've asked our city solicitor, is there any means for us to go after part of those funds or to have the funds frozen? Because why would an organization like GoFundMe fund an organization that's causing such havoc in a community? They're making money. Obviously, they take a cut of the money as well. So I don't know where this money is going, who has authorization to spend it. It seems pretty sketchy at the best.
Okay. So we've seen residents, you know, out into the street, standing in front of trucks, people waving their own signs, kind of, you know, these small demonstrations of counter-protest born out of frustration, I am sure. I worry, though, that could inflame things. It could turn a tense situation even worse. What is your message to residents who want to go out and confront the protesters, Mr. Mayor?
Well, we've seen, you know, the behavior of these truckers and their associates to be intimidating and frightening and dangerous. And I would encourage people not to, you know, come across them and start some argument. You know, while I admire people standing up to them, and I think that's gutsy, I just don't want to see any of our residents harmed or hurt. We've got a lot of hotheads on the other side. You know, reports of people going and tearing off people's masks where they're waiting at a bus stop. And we saw the degradation of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. If they're going to allow that to happen, anything's on the table in terms of the kind of behavior and violence that they may be willing to inflict on our residents. So the best advice I can give, and I'm sure the police would support this, is, you know, please don't put yourself in danger when it comes to confronting one of these people who clearly have no empathy or sympathy for the plight of our residents. And I was down around Rideau Street and King Edward. You know, it looks like a tailgate party. They seem to be having barbecues and beer bottles all over the place and acting like they're a bunch of frat boys and hurting the reputation of good truckers, but also inflicting a lot of stress, mental health issues with kids who can't get to sleep because of the honking, people feeling intimidated about wanting to even open their restaurant or their coffee shop. So we have another briefing with city councillors today and to bring them up to date in terms of the most up-to-date information we have from the police, and we continue to increase resources in those neighborhoods that have been traumatized and terrorized by these people, and that will give greater presence and hopefully greater peace of mind to the people in those neighborhoods who I just can't, even begin to imagine how frustrating it is for them and for the business people that want to finally open their restaurant, but they can't because they're fearful of these thugs coming in with no masks and harassing their staff and doing harm.
Well, to have the Rideau Center closed for basically a week, I mean,
well, I know,
and gosh, I mean, for a family-owned merchant in the Rideau Center, the rent in the Rideau Center is astronomical, and the Rideau Center hardly ever closes. I can't remember the Rideau Center being closed this long. So, the economic damage is really adding up here for the local economy. So.
Well, it is, and it's also adding up for taxpayers because we're shouldering $800,000 a day in police costs, and then several $100,000 a day, I'd estimate, in terms of other extraordinary costs. Everything from bylaw to public works. We have to get the front end loaders and dump trucks blocking sections of the street so no more trucks can come into the downtown core. And we've got a lot of support from other police services, but we have to pay for those. They don't send them
sure.
For free. So, I've had discussions with the federal government, and they understand that they will be helpful as they have been in the past to helping us with our bottom line. But my biggest concern right now are those small businesses who are already hanging on by a thread, and now are really almost down for the count because of these truckers. And we've seen video evidence of people harassing people at a front desk of a hotel and at a coffee shop, and even just walking through Confederation Park, people being bullied because they're wearing a mask.
So what about this idea? You get the city's legal team, you go to court, you seek an injunction, and you get the clock ticking on this kind of thing.
Are you talking about the GoFundMe or the overall?
No. To say, look, we have an injunction against this demonstration issued by a judge, and you have to be out by this day, this hour on this day, we're going to arrest you and impound your truck. Why doesn't the city do something like that?
Well, that is one of the options that we're looking at, but it also requires, once the paper won't move them out, you'll have to have the police intervene. And that's why the chief has said, all options are on the table, but he has to use his best judgment not to inflame the situation and make it even worse. If you have one person that's been charged with bringing weapons, the chances are pretty good that there are other people that have weapons. And the last thing we need to do is to escalate this protest and this sit-in and this occupation even more. We want this to end peacefully. We're fed up with the longevity of the situation. But the last thing we need is people being hurt, fatally wounded, and causing an even bigger riot than we have right now. And I know that's frustrating for people. People want us to move in. But I have to take the advice of our police chief and his command, who have decades of experience dealing with these kinds of things. Peter Slowey was in Toronto during the G20, for instance, which is a similar dangerous situation as we're finding in our own hometown.
Okay. You mentioned the $800,000 a day. So, 6 days, you're up to almost $5 million in costs.
Oh, yeah, no, this is going to cost millions of dollars. There's no question about that, because a lot of overtime, people being called in from holidays and so on. And, I have to say I admire the work the police are doing and showing restraint. They're working under extremely difficult circumstances, just as people living in the neighborhoods are living under difficult circumstances. Our police are out there 24 hours a day in the freezing cold, being insulted by some of these, truckers and their associates. And it's not an easy job. So it's always easy for someone as an armchair quarterback to say, well, send them in. Yeah. You've got to have a balanced response so it doesn't, put gas on a fire.
But weeks, months?
Well, no, it's not going to be months. I'm reluctant to give days or weeks.
No,
because,
I know.
We just don't know. Things change literally by the hour down there. So, this thing can't go on forever. I'm fed up. The whole city is fed up, and this will come to an end. But my objective and that of the police is that it come to an end peacefully, Will there be arrests? I'm sure there will be. There's, as I said, there's 13 active investigations, and people will be held accountable for their actions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. So that's one big story here in Ottawa. Another big story is the leadership of Erin O'Toole. We're going to jump right into that. D-Day for Erin O'Toole. It's your political fix right after the news on a Wednesday morning, Groundhog Day. Rob Snow Show on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, February 2nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 0, and here's what's making news right now. Ottawa's Mayor Jim Watson says he is leaving it up to police to handle the protest in the downtown. He has complete faith in Police Chief Peter Slowly. Jim Watson tells the Rob Snow Show protesters are acting like boors and bullies. And Watson says he's asked the city solicitor to find out what the city can do, possibly ask the GoFundMe account to raise money for this protest to be frozen. The mayor also says an injunction is among the items being discussed. But the situation, he says, cannot be escalated. Watson says he and the whole city is fed up, but it has to end peacefully. Now, while the mayor says he also respects those who have protested the protesters, he doesn't recommend taking that action. He says people should not put themselves in any danger. Watson also says this protest is hurting the reputation of good truckers. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole will learn today if he gets to keep his job. Party members find out if they'll be asked to select a new leader for the third time in just over 6 years. The crucial vote for both leader and party unfolds, Conservative MPs meeting virtually to decide O'Toole's fate. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix. Joining us today is Ashton Arsenault, Vice President, Crestview Strategies. Says he's a Queen and Bank this morning. Ashton, Queen and Bank, morning.
Queen and Bank, morning.
Right in the zone, just south of the zone, the ground zero for the convoy. So that's you got a good perch there. You got a good view of everything that's going on, Ashton.
Yeah, here and there. It's cleared out quite a bit. But,
Okay. All right. And Carl Belanger is in Chelsea this morning. He's the president of Traction Strategies. Morning, Carl.
I don't see any truckers here.
No truckers in Chelsea.
No.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, let's jump right into it here. There's a lot to get into. Two big stories. I mean, there's the Conservative Party leadership and the protest. But why don't we start with the immediacy of the Erin O'Toole vote since the virtual caucus meeting? I'm told it started at around 10 after 9 this morning. Ashton, what do you think is going to happen?
I think it might be a very difficult day for Erin O'Toole, and even if he does, eke out a win via the majority of his caucus colleagues, I think that the question of his leadership is going to continue to hang around his neck for as long as he's leader. I really don't see a clear path for him through this, and based on all of the conversations I have had, the media reports, of course, there have been numerous over the last couple of days. I mean, there are 35, take it to the bank that want him gone, right?
Right.
They signed sort of that letter asking the caucus chair to hold this vote. In my point of view, that's basically as close to a death sentence as you could get in the first place. But, of course, based on conversations, we've been told that more than half of caucus is willing to turf him today. I don't know if that's true. Obviously, they're sorting that out right now. And I know that, each campaign, so sort of the pro-O'Toole campaign, including the leader himself, was making calls last night trying to whip the vote in his favor, as was the opposing campaign. And I think ultimately it's going to be very close. But at the end of the day, even if Erin O'Toole does pull through today, it's not a rosy outlook on his future.
Okay. What do you think is going to happen, Carl?
It's going to damage the brand. It's going to damage the Conservative brand. That's what's going to happen no matter what. There's two things. First, it's really, really, really hard to depose a leader who wants to hang on. But it's also really, really, really hard for a leader who wants to hang on to stay when a third of the caucus is opposed to him and wants him gone. And this reminds me of Stockwell Day back in the days when a sizable chunk of caucus wanted him gone, and eventually they left and joined Joe Clark's Progressive Conservatives and created this weird hybrid party in the House of Commons, and it eventually led to Stockwell Day resigning. It took a long time. It took a while. It was very damaging because the party was then not ready for the election. And that's the kind of situation we're in. And so often party leaders will see the writing on the wall and do the right thing for the good of the party and leave. But at this time, I don't think O'Toole wants to leave because he sees this, as he wrote earlier this week, as a real battle for the soul of the Conservative Party and the two directions and the party can go in. Either try to convince a majority of Canadians to vote for them or cater to the right wing and the extreme right wing of the party. Those are the two paths, and O'Toole sees himself as the wall against the path towards the right wing side of things.
Right. But Ashton, don't you think, if he gets whatever, 50 plus 1, 55, 60, isn't he mortally wounded already? Don't you think he's just mortally wounded already, Ashton?
I think it honestly depends on your perspective of Erin O'Toole's leadership. I think to Charles' point, it is difficult when you're in a situation where you've got a leader that wants to hang on no matter what. I'll be brutally honest. In my humble opinion, I think it is a mortal wound already. Like I said, I think the fact that it is
I'm with you there, Ashton.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The fact that it has gotten this far does not bode well for the future prospect of Erin O'Toole. And I think the only way to remedy this situation has long passed. And I think directly after Election Day, with the result that was achieved, I think he should have called a leadership review right away. And if he survived that, then maybe you get a second lease on life. But in this current context, it's looking grim.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know how he could continue if he had 40 or 50 MPs who wanted him out. I mean, that's just untenable, unworkable, unmanageable. because they're always going to be throwing knives at the guy.
Yeah,
right? They're going to leak every little bit of bad news that would typically be kept under wraps. They're going to be whispering things into reporters' ears. I mean, it's just wholly unworkable to me.
Or
yeah,
even
Carl,
worse.
yeah.
What if, let's say, those 35s are just the core that want him out and everybody else wants him to stay? And then those 35 says, all right, well, this party has no future.
Yeah.
We're leaving.
Yeah, we bolt. Yeah.
We're joining Maxime's People's Party. Then what?
Yeah, so as a conservative, that's obviously my preoccupation and concern at this point in time. And I was also going to mention, Carl, great point. I was going to say operationally, it's challenging because if you've got, let's say 35 people that are dug in and O'Toole survives today, like what are his choices? Like mass expulsions from caucus? That's going to be horrible. Is he going to have to reshuffle his entire sort of shadow cabinet?
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
There are just a number of questions that remain unanswered, and hopefully we have some more clarity by this afternoon.
Yeah. What do you think about how... there was the spin. I think it was spin. This has to do with the way things worked on the ban on conversion therapy, which I thought was one of the high watermarks, actually, for O'Toole's time as leader. The way he shepherded that through the House and got that behind the Conservatives. So there was obviously some spinning of reporters going on there. Well, they're upset about the conversion therapy thing. And then the painting it as, well, it's me or it's Derek Sloan or it's me or Randy Hillier, as these stark contrasts. What did you think about how that was presented, Ashton? What did you think? Seems kind of extreme to me, but what do you think?
Well, I agree with your take, Rob. I think it was spin, and worse than that, you could also look at it as a way to sort of divide caucus and sort of create camps of who's in your favor versus who is against. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't buy the spin. I don't think that this is over the conversion therapy vote or the bill. If that's the case, they basically forced everybody into accepting unanimous consent to get this bill through the House. And any person at that point in time could have raised their hand and said no and walked in unanimous consent.
Yeah,
so I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
And I think the party is perfectly comfortable in the position that it finds itself in with respect to conversion therapy and it being banned, as it should be. What I did not like is a leader basically trying to divide the party by saying, you're either with me or you're with the people that are unsavory. And leaders that want to build big tent parties don't do that.
Carl, what do you think, Carl? Agree?
Well, that spin would be more credible if Erin O'Toole had not gone to the protests where those people were at. He's condemning Randy Hillier, but he went to the same protests. He went to meet with the same people, and some of his MPs are there. So if you are going to create a contrast and a divide, make sure you're not caught on the other side, because then you don't have the credibility to make that point. And when it comes to conversion therapy, obviously I'm not a conservative insider, but
right.
At the time, it felt really strange to me because O'Toole came out and says it's going to be a free vote. And so everybody thought, wow, here we go again. The Conservatives are going to stand up and they're going to vote against this. So that was a stunt. That was a setup. So how much coercion was involved in there? Well, looking at some of the backbench from the people that were, there was a lot of unhappy people sitting on their hands and not saying anything. But to Ashton's point, they could have stood up and say no. They didn't. So it was a O'Toole high mark, but it could have created a lot of bad blood and mistrust that eventually leads to today.
Okay. All right. So, let's pretend. Let's work from the assumption that by the end of business today, he's gone. If that's the case, who do you like as an interim leader for this party? Ashton?
So I just want to talk about the process very quickly, Rob, because if in the event that there are enough sort of anti-O'Toole votes to effectively have him step down, what happens next is a ranked ballot, which is also a secret vote.
Okay.
So I imagine a couple of people would have to raise their hands to say, look, I'm interested in being the interim leader. That all having been said, your vote is cast in secret. So it's really going to be interesting to see, we'll never see it publicly, but it'll be interesting to see where the chips fall. But two names I've heard more than anybody else is one, Ed Fast, long-term member of Parliament, trusted on both sides of the aisle, former cabinet minister, very clearly doesn't have future leadership aspirations, would be a steady hand at the till.
Okay.
Another name I've heard is Tom Kamiec. He's a member of Parliament from Calgary Shepherd. I believe he's on his third tour in the House of Commons. He's also the chair of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. Also well-liked on both sides of the aisle, and doesn't look like he has future long-term ambitions either. So those are the two names I've heard more than anybody else.
All right. Okay. All right. Do you want to weigh in there, Carl?
Well, the one thing is, I think it would be a mistake for the Conservatives to not find somebody who can talk and speak and in French. So, if you want to have an interim leader and you choose someone who doesn't speak French, then you better make sure that your race is very quick and doesn't drag on for 2 years. Because in Quebec, the Conservatives have a stronghold, but a beachhead, but the Bloc Québécois is still very strong in those ridings, and they will hammer this away. So don't make that mistake for an interim position. It's not necessary. And then don't make that mistake for the actual leader if you replace him.
Okay. Well, as for the actual leader, maybe we are getting ahead of ourselves here, but hey, it's fun. It's politics. Let's speculate. That's part of the fun, right? Give me some names. Poilievre, right? Poilievre, number one name, top of the list. Ashton, Poilievre.
He would be a strong candidate in any leadership race. There's no question about it. He's obviously got an abundance of talents. He's well-liked in the party grassroots. He can fundraise. He can campaign. He seems to have an unending tap of energy that he can always rely on.
Yeah.
And he sort of represents, what is sort of thought as an ideological conservative that is able to argue and explain the viewpoints of other conservatives, which doesn't come around all that often, if I'm being perfectly honest. So he would be an extremely strong contender if he wanted to run for the top job.
Okay. Anybody else? Top of mind for you, Ashton, just before we get Carl? Anybody else? Who do you think else? Who else do you think?
I think it's a little early days. A couple of other names I've heard floated around. I mean, we've always heard the rumors of Doug Ford having federal aspirations.
Yeah, he pretty much ruled that out yesterday, though. He ruled that out.
He did. I'll throw another name out that is also fairly prominent in Toronto, and that would be one Mr. Patrick Brown.
Patrick Brown.
Another incredible organizer that, connects with immigrant communities, new Canadians.
How's his French? Does he speak French?
That's a really great question. I actually wouldn't be able to comment on that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he's strong in the Indo-Canadian community. I wonder. I don't know about his French though. Carl, who do you see?
Well,
on a ballot?
Certainly Poilievre seems to establish himself as the front runner from the bench. If I were the Conservatives, I would look at perhaps a different kind of politician, somebody that doesn't play the wedge politics in the same way that Poilievre does. Maybe somebody that is a little more urban too, like Melissa Lantsman comes to mind. I mean, she's young, she has the Toronto vibe. If you're going to make inroads in urban Canada, you need to find people that can connect. And I think Melissa could be an interesting candidate.
Yeah.
I like Matt Genereux. He's young. He's also kind of connected with the urban vibe. So I like those two. I'm not sure where their French are at. Certainly, if you look at the usual suspect list, like Peter MacKay is not making a comeback, Doug Ford is not interested, Jason Kenney is going to have a hard time in Alberta already. So you're looking really at the caucus, unless there's a big surprise somewhere else. But is there someone in there that can do better than O'Toole? Because that's a big question. And in a similar fashion, the question should have been asked, is somebody could do better than Scheer? And the answer was no.
Yeah. What about a Quebecer? Anybody come to mind?
Gérard Deltel would be, to me, the best candidate. Former broadcaster, he's bilingual. He is very good on his feet. and really smart. Alain Reyes would be another one, but sources have told me that he has absolutely no interest in that. So if there's a Quebecer jumping in the ring, it would be Gérard Deltel from the Quebec City area.
Deltel. Okay. And finally, well, what, don't you think there's a real risk? Okay, you booted O'Toole. First you booted Scheer, then you booted O'Toole. Isn't there a chance that you could do worse than O'Toole? Like, you could elect somebody as the leader who makes this party completely unelectable if they go kind of hard right, socially conservative right. What do you think? Is there a real risk of that, Ashton? Or
I mean, it's always a risk. If I'm being perfectly honest with you, it's always a risk. I mean, we don't have to go all that far back to look at a leadership race that, nearly had Maxime Bernier be the leader of the Conservative Party. Like, he lost by the skin on his feet.
Oh, yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So you don't really have to go that far back. I mean, obviously, he has pivoted considerably since that leadership race into an area that I am certainly not comfortable with. But besides the point,
right.
Yes, look, it's a very real risk that you could end up with somebody, even worse. I don't think that's going to happen, to be perfectly honest with you.
You don't.
And this is the one thing I will say that I think is really agitating a lot of people that find themselves lining up against O'Toole. Conservatives have a history of winning elections when they run as conservatives. If they try to hide who they are, if they try to cater to the center, try to cater to the left wing, try to cater to light liberals, we lose. And I think as soon as that lesson is learned, we will be more competitive in federal elections.
Okay, yeah. I would say he didn't lose by the hair of his teeth. He lost by a few quarts of milk, I guess you could say. Max, right? All right. Okay, look, we'll come back. We'll talk about the protest that's happening downtown, the political ramifications, the politics of convoys. When we come back, your political fix. Rob Snow Show, City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So yeah, we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. And the other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but not of the 30 odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. But yeah, it's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And yep, it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. You know, the most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
So we're back, part 2 of your Political Fix here on the Rob Snow Show on City News with Ashton Arsenault, Vice President, Crestview Strategy, Carl Belanger, President of Traxion Strategies. And we have a little bit of Pierre Poilievre. The scene is, it's a cold, frigid, bitterly cold day in Ottawa, and he is on an overpass, and he is with supporters, and they're waving Canadian flags, and they are cheering on the convoy on its way to Ottawa. This is a little bit of Poilievre from his social media feeds
But
here.
it's also a rally for the 60% of Canadians who say they worry they can't afford food. It's for the 60-year-old small businessman who spent his entire adult life building up an enterprise and watching it wiped out. It's for the depressed 14-year-old who's been locked out of school. It's for the families that can't take it anymore. It's for the people who want to stand up and speak for their freedom.
All right, so you get the idea. So he has been front and center, very, very visible. Supporting the end of the mandates, and views this as standing up for the working class. But is there going to be a political price to pay for this? What do you think, Carl?
Well, I think so.
You think so?
I think the majority of Canadians are not supportive of what's happening right now in downtown Ottawa. They're not supportive of what's happening in Couts in Alberta at the border post, and they're not supportive of what's going to happen in Quebec City this weekend. And there's a lot of people who are worried. Now, there's a fatigue with the sanitary measures, no doubt, but there's a line that you're crossing, and people are not buying it. I mean, you're there for the working class. The Rideau Center has been closed for almost a week now. Low-paid workers out of their salary because of this convoy. And you're saying, you have the gall to say that you're there for the working class. Like, this is the issue, right? And this is, interestingly enough, the same guy, Poilievre, who not that long ago was saying that rail blockades were illegal and the police had the tool to remove them and you have to let people live freely and so on and so forth. The hypocrisy of all of this is incredible. So I think he's going to pay a price, and I think the Conservative Party is paying a price because of it. And in fact, Erin O'Toole is partly in the predicament he is in because of the convoy.
What do you think, Ashton? What do you think? Political consequences for this?
Well, I think it'll be remembered certainly for a long time. But I will say this, disparaging everybody in this protest only served to alienate further. And, in my opinion, leaders don't do that. They shouldn't do that.
Okay.
Justin Trudeau did that. And the last time I checked, I was reading some coverage this morning. I think there's 250 protesters left in Ottawa. Obviously the city is still pretty locked down in Centertown, where I'm, on the phone with you from. But look, I think, to just dismiss what in many cases are legitimate grievances by a wide swath of the population is inappropriate. I mean, our Canadian political leaders have a duty to listen to their constituents and those that they represent. Do I think that, some probably have taken it too far? Yeah, I do. Do I think that there will be long-term consequences for, specific individuals? Maybe. It's probably a little too early to tell. And I think, with any luck at all of this goes away, in the next couple of days peacefully. And, it will have been an experience.
And they head to Quebec City, and they head to Quebec City, and they head to Queen's Park and, bother people there, I guess. You mentioned, though, we have the clip, the Trudeau clip from his news briefing. I can't even remember when this was, earlier this week maybe, or late last week. Roll the tape.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other.
Okay. So some are wondering with his comments recently if he's had his kind of Hillary Clinton basket of deplorables moment, which, you know, was a big turning point in the American presidential election, the Trump presidential election. What do you think, Carl? Is Trudeau, flying close to the sun there with comments like that?
I think that no, I don't think so. I think if there was an election tomorrow, I think the Liberals would be reelected. That said, if you look at the polls, the two main parties are currently polling under 30%, like under 30% for the Liberals and Conservatives.
Yeah.
Something is happening, clearly. But, when you look at the cries of victories from the protesters and the convoy participants yesterday, it didn't come from Ottawa. It came from Quebec City, where Premier Legault backed away from the anti-vax tax. And he claimed that it was not because of the protest and he was not worried, but at the same time he was saying, I need to keep people united and I'm worried about social peace. So of course people are going to take that as we're winning, and it's going to encourage them to keep going.
Okay. Ashton, what do you think? Basket of deplorables moment?
I don't think so.
No?
I mean, I think Carl's calculus is right. If I'm being honest with you, I think it's a strategic advantage for the Prime Minister to divide one population of Canadians against the other. I mean, he's been doing that since 2013. It's an effective political strategy. I just wish that wasn't the case in Canadian political discourse, but it certainly is at this moment in time. And I'll also say this: I think there is a strong element of fatigue at play here. And, when the world returns to a little bit more normal than it is right now, hopefully a lot of these fences will be mended. But again, I was downtown Ottawa when we had the sort of anti-racism BLM march in the midst of COVID in June 2020. The Prime Minister was in the middle of the crowd. He took a knee. There was news cameras everywhere. There was no commentary about these people being a fringe minority or, representing views that the vast majority of Canadians don't hold. And in this situation, we have very divisive language and a Prime Minister that wouldn't touch this protest with a 10-foot pole if you paid him to. If you can't see the difference between the two, then I don't know if your eyes are open wide enough.
Okay. Hey, thanks to the both of you. Great conversation this morning. Always love it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep. Carl Belanger, Traxion. And Ashton Arsenault is right downtown at Queen Street and Bank Street, and he is with Crestview Strategies. Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour coming up next here on City News.
This is City News.
KYWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, February 2nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 0. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As the nerves, especially of those living or working in downtown, are frazzled with the ongoing trucker protests, there are calls for the city to take action now. But Ottawa's mayor says police can't just go in guns a-blazing and end the downtown convoy protest, warning of the likelihood that at least some of the truckers are armed. Here's City News reporter Jason White.
Residents' nerves are frayed by the convoy, and the costs of this protest are adding up, and not just for taxpayers.
My biggest concern right now are those small businesses who are already hanging on by a thread and now are really, almost down for the count because of these truckers.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson tells the Rob Snow Show while he thinks counter-protesters standing up to the convoy are gutsy, he worries about the possibility of violence.
If you have one person that's been charged with bringing weapons, the chances are pretty good that there are other people that have weapons.
The mayor says this protest will end, but that the police have to be prudent and not risk anyone getting hurt or killed. Jason White, City News.
Now, the city is holding another update on the protest convoy this afternoon at 2 o'clock. City News will have complete coverage for you this afternoon with Mark Day and Danielle Bain. City News time 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A huge area affected with this storm for us today, tomorrow, even into Friday, from Windsor all the way to Ottawa and beyond. We'll have a mix of rain and snow today, 2 to 5 centimeters, a light southwest wind, the high near +1. Could collect another 5+ centimeters of snow tonight, with the temperature near 1 degree through the evening and then slowly dropping. For today, the high +1.
And right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's 0. Councillor Matthew Fleury tried to have the Transportation Committee adjourned this morning without dealing with any of the issues on the agenda. Fleury, whose ward takes in a part of that downtown trucker convoy protest, wants to give his attention to that issue. In a vote of 7-4, though, the committee rejected the motion, so that committee is going through its scheduled agenda right now. It appears the sky-high gas prices you are facing will continue at least for some time. Major oil-producing countries are adding just a little bit more oil to the global economy. That decision today, though, likely to support prices as they are now, near the highest level in 7 years. The 23-member OPEC Plus alliance is sticking with the roadmap, adding 400,000 barrels per day in March. Oil producers are gradually restoring cuts they made when the pandemic was at its worst. Now, fears of a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine adding to supply concerns. Russia is a major oil producer and could be hit with sanctions by the United States, Europe, and others. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Yes, it does. Day 6 of the protest. Comment on that, especially if you've been impacted by it, if it's impacted you personally. I have a line for you. Love to hear your story. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. And Aaron O'Toole, what do you think is going to happen to the Conservative leader, the leader of the official opposition, hanging on by a thread? What do you think will happen? What do you hope will happen? With the Conservative leadership on the line, you can comment on that as well. 750-1310, 750-1310, 750-1310. I mean, those are the big stories of the day, right? The protest day 6, and, where do we go from here? And the vote. The vote that will determine Aaron O'Toole's leadership of the Conservative Party. 750-1310, Talkback Hour, chance to hear from you, your opinions on the biggest news stories of the day. I would just point out, I'm going to take the rest of the week off after today, so I work the weekend, so it's your last chance to have at me. I won't be back until Monday of next week, so I will be leaving you in the capable hands of Derek Fage from Daytime Ottawa on Rogers Television. He will be in for me tomorrow and Friday. So all of this, it got going Friday night, really, that's when a lot of convoy participants started showing up in town, horns a-blaring. It was a wild weekend. It was a loud Monday. And then by yesterday, things started to thin out considerably. And now it's down to the hardcore. I mean, there have been some reports that the size of the demonstration could grow again once the weekend arrives, but there have also been reports that some of the protesters who are here may leave and go protest in Toronto at Queen's Park or go protest in Quebec City. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the weekend brings. But here we are. I mean, it's about 6 days into this, and for residents, for businesses in the downtown area, you can see it, you can hear it. They've had about all they can take. They've had about all they can take. And they would like the protesters to leave, no matter their numbers, whether it's 5,000 protesters, 550 or 5. They want them gone and gone for good. And on the other side, I mean, they have a statement this morning. We're not going anywhere. We're not leaving until all of our demands are met. All of them. And all mandates come to an end. So that's kind of where we are again today. So let's get into it here. Calling from Lanark Highlands, Rodney, good morning. You're on City
good
News.
Morning.
Yeah, hi, Rodney.
Caller.
Thank you, Rodney, for calling.
Long-time listener.
Appreciate it, sir.
I listened to your interview yesterday morning with Professor Ian Lee.
Yes.
And he was very clear in the first part of the interview that he's a dyed-in-red liberal.
Oh, he's a liberal. I wouldn't describe him as a liberal. No, I wouldn't describe him.
Well, he described himself as a liberal, but and I guess I'm of a different complexion. But anyway, a slightly different perspective on the truckers' convoy that I think has been overlooked by pretty well everybody.
Okay.
So in 16 days, and I'm paraphrasing Trudeau, this fringe group with unacceptable ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so this fringe group, as of yesterday morning, they had been supported to the over $9,400,000 of GoFundMe support.
Yeah, a lot of money. Yeah.
This came from ordinary Canadians who want to get back to normal life. The truckers came from every province and every corner of Canada. And this is not a protest as much as it's a movement of ordinary Canadians.
You think so? Yeah.
I think so.
You think ordinary Canadians stand in the middle of the street and tell people to go F themselves?
Well, if you get any event anywhere, you're going to get some unruly people that want to latch on.
Right. Okay.
And, I think back 2 years ago, I was visiting our son in Georgia at the time, and following the train blockades in Alberta and Ontario.
Yeah.
That went on for weeks.
Yeah.
And the government stood by and said, well, yeah, we got to let them protest. So now, I mean, it's upsetting for the people in Ottawa, and I understand that. But the people in Ottawa weren't bothered when northern Alberta and British Columbia were shut down and blocked by foreign-paid and supported protesters that were moved around the country to...
well, certainly some of us were, actually, Rodney. Yeah, some of us were, yeah.
And
wanted those protests dismantled because of the economic damage that it was doing to the country.
Right, but it went on for weeks.
Yes, it did go on for weeks, yeah.
And, and speak about our Prime Minister for a minute.
Yeah.
2012, he is regularly quoted as admiring China because they can get things done quickly there.
Yeah. You think he would say the same thing today? I'm not defending the Prime Minister.
No, he's not getting things quickly done today, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But he's been a very divisive...
Very divisive, yes.
Very divisive person.
Yes, I agree, yeah.
He said evangelical Christians are the most dangerous element of Canadian society.
Oh, I don't know if he said that or not.
He did.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of it.
Okay.
Quoted as understandable that people are burning churches with reference to the...
well, that wasn't him that said that. Gerald Butts said that on Twitter. Yes.
Well, so is there a difference between Gerald Butts and Trudeau?
Well, they are two different people, and I'm just telling you, Gerald Butts said it, not Trudeau. I'm not here to defend Trudeau. I'm not here to defend Trudeau, okay?
Yeah. And It just goes on and on. Now
Yes, it just goes on and on. I guess, how are we going to resolve this situation here? Do you give in to protesters' demands because they drive a truck?
Well, I know there are a lot of unanswered questions. It's not a very good time to be a politician.
No.
To be the prime minister or to be the leader of the official opposition.
Because 250 people have decided they're going to camp out in trucks in downtown Ottawa. Should the government just bend to their will?
Well, probably not. But let's get into some logistics here.
I don't have time to get into logistics because I have jam-packed phone lines again this morning, and I want to fit as many people in as we can. But I thank you for your call, Rodney. You've got us off to a good start. Mark in Ottawa South. Mark.
Thank you, Rob. Well, one factor that's going to kick in the next few days, which could make the situation worse, how heavy is this snowfall going to be? Is it enough that it will possibly lock some of these vehicles in place? And certainly if it's high enough, the snowplows will have to get in to clear it, and if they can't because the way is obstructed by these vehicles, that's going to create more anger. Also, even more dangerous, we're hovering around the freezing point, right?
Yes.
So could some of this precipitation turn to freezing rain? Because then it gets really dangerous.
Okay. Good point. Yeah.
Now, as for the question of Aaron O'Toole,
yes.
No, I'm afraid he's been fatally damaged.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Simply because, you see, when so many of his own people have revealed to the public that they don't want him as their leader, they can't then go to the voters in the next election and say he's the man to be the leader of the country.
Sure, yeah.
But what I would say to these people is...
half my own people don't support me, but you should vote for me and make me prime minister. Put that on a lawn sign, Mark.
If they get a new leader, I'm not convinced it's going to make any difference. Because it's important to study not just the leaders, but the voters themselves. Under what conditions do people change their votes? And there are plenty of people who don't like Justin Trudeau but still vote Liberal. Not liking the current incumbent leader and being willing to switch and vote for the opposition are two very different things.
Yeah, I think most of them live in Ottawa Vanier, as a matter of fact.
And in Ottawa South.
And Ottawa South, yeah, you're right, Mark. Yeah.
And in Toronto areas.
No, but I agree with you. I think the very fact that this vote is happening at all is it's a near fatal wound to his leadership.
Well, yes, the people in the party have said they don't think he's fit to be leader.
So what makes him fit? So what makes him fit to lead the country, right? Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Good comments as usual. Victor in Ottawa. Victor, you're on City News.
Yeah, hi, Rob.
Hi, Victor.
I'm a fan of yours. I've been listening to you for a long time now.
Appreciate it, Victor.
Yeah. So,
what do you think about everything that's going on here, Victor?
Yeah. So, I'm going to give you this perspective, right, which we've decided to avoid. Okay, because it has some things around it. I'm a black man. I believe in fairness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
When we had the George Floyd riots, okay.
Yeah.
We didn't go after the vandalization like this. People that actually destroyed properties. We didn't go after them like this. We told them we've heard you. We will look into your cries and we'll see what we will do about it. Even the Prime Minister took a knee.
Mm-hmm.
But for this case, before they even started the protest, you've already vilified them. You've called them racists. You've called them fringe. So from the start of this protest, you've already made them evil. I listened to you on Saturday when you said, whoa, what you heard on Thursday and Friday is not what it's turning out to be. Now you want them to leave. You're not talking to them. You are talking over them. Oh, okay, you finish your protest, pack and go. That is not how you talk to people.
Okay.
You could go to them and say, you know what? See, we need this city to run. We've listened to you. We will debate this restrictions. Heck, yesterday Ontario just eased up a bit, and we're going to start easing up. That's how you talk to people. You don't just start insulting them and then you want them to
Politicians are going to politicize things for political gain. Right, Victor? Okay. My problem with the protesters, and I'm not calling them racist. I'm not painting all of the protesters with the same brush. But what I am calling them out on is The intimidation, the public urination, the open drinking, the open smoking of dope, the litter, the giant signs that say F you, the constant horn honking, all of this has been going on for a week. Enough already. We have people who are trying to staff hospitals in the middle of a pandemic. The Montfort Hospital, almost half of the staff works on the Quebec side. Similar situation with Briere. This is causing incredible harm to a great many people, Victor. These are my concerns.
I know.
It's not the politicians are always going to politicize the issue because they think it will be to maximum political effect for them. I'm concerned about the well-being of the people who have to deal with this in their everyday lives. That's what I'm concerned about, Victor. I have to stop. I appreciate what you're saying, though. You make some good points. 10:17, Rob Snow Show, City News.
My name is Pamela Caillou. I'm a local artist. I'm Métis, and the heritage derives from Algonquin and Huron background. That comes from way, way back from the 1600s. I was trained in school classically, like we studied the masters like Picasso, Michelangelo, Van Gogh, and so you'd have to say it's quite different, my style. What I've done is taken the skills that were taught to me by traditional painting and incorporated that with the Indigenous heritage. My art pieces incorporate the energy and spirit of the Mother Earth in pretty much every single one of them, because I want people to realize, even though we might think we are the masters of the domain here on the planet, that is not the case. It's the Mother Earth that's providing a balance and our causes to live and whatnot. And it's just always see her and remember her and respect her. Well, I try to keep my style different because there are like a handful of Canadian artists that are really well known, like Norval Morrisseau and whatnot, but it's been done. So I kind of want to stay away from the pack, and that's what makes my artwork a little more unique. But at the same time, if you're looking at it, you do know it's Indigenous and you do know it's the woodland style. I usually start by coming up with an idea, which would be, let's say, 4 days. Well, it depends what's inspiring me at the time. It could be a lot of trees, it could be water, it could be the medicine wheel. I would choose a subject and try to really incorporate what it is I want people to see from that. So then from there, I have sketchbooks and I do little sketches of everything because the canvas is expensive. So you don't want to start something and have to throw it away. And then from there, I go on to the bigger piece on the canvas. Once I have on my sketches the direction I want to take my artwork in. I chose a lot of vibrant colors for the pieces because if somebody is willing to make the commitment to have my piece of work in their home, I would actually like them to come home after a long, hard day, and some days aren't so great, to look at something that's very joyful.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Yeah, I'm kind of taking this down to ground level today, 6 days into this protest here in the city. I mean, no matter the size of the convoy, the number of demonstrators, I mean, it's causing problems in the city 6 days into this. And no end in sight because they issued a news release, a statement saying we're not going anywhere until all of our demands are met. So the Rideau Center is going to be closed for the rest of the week. The management of the Rideau Centre, I guess, has come to the conclusion it's just not worth the trouble to be open. It's causing all kinds of problems with public transit, big disruptions for public transit, big disruptions for commuters who use the West End bridges. Like hours to get to work, Commutes, we normally take 25 minutes, they're taking 2 hours. And in the immediate area, people are stressed out. And if they're anything like me, they were burned out and stressed out before this ever showed up in town. And this is only added to kind of the emotional burden. And look, I mean, the worry is it's only a matter of time before people reach a breaking point and they start taking matters into their own hands. And there's a confrontation, right? There are already pictures of people, locals. They're standing in front of trucks, okay? Holding up truckers, waving their own signs of protest at the protesters. My worry is the two come to blows and it doesn't have a happy ending. These are my worries on the 6th day. And on the 6th day, Angelo called from College Ward. Good morning, Angelo.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks. What do you think of everything?
I'm fully vaxxed, and, to a certain extent, I agree with the protesters. They're doing what they have the right to do, protest. And I understand that the people downtown are getting, shy, hard to get to work. They're having trouble. And I saw a video of a guy screaming at somebody because he hasn't slept in 48 hours. And I feel bad for the families and stuff like that. But Trudeau, if he was a man, he would, grow a pair and go talk to the people downtown like they want him to do.
I don't know.
And maybe settle something.
If you were in charge, first of all, Mr. Trudeau doesn't make any decisions about his own personal security. That's always made by the RCMP. If you were, say, in charge of the RCMP security detail from the Prime Minister, would you let him anywhere near any of these protesters? Really?
Well,
really?
The protesters there's a few yahoos peeing on tombs and stuff. That's not safe for any Prime Minister, right?
Right.
But as a Prime Minister, he should, in some form, communicate with them and talk to them. Because it is unrealistic to just wipe everything off the table.
All right.
But he should talk to them. And then on the Erin O'Toole thing, I think it's time for him to go, and I'd like to see Pierre Poilievre as the next leader of the Conservatives.
Yep.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Angelo. Yeah, that's going to be a popular opinion on the future of the Conservative Party. Let's trade you one Erin O'Toole for one Pierre Poilievre. Popular, very popular, not surprised. Jacques, Carleton Place. Jacques.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Jacques.
If I can draw an analogy, for those of us that like to paddle in Algonquin Park, there is an old saying, if you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes, it's going to change.
Yeah, sure.
My thoughts on Erin O'Toole is if you don't like what he's talking about, just wait a little while, he's going to say the reverse.
Yes.
That seems to me the reason for his demise.
Yeah, he's kind of like a weather vane, right? He's kind of like a weather vane, that guy.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Jacques. Thanks for calling, sir. 750-1310, another busy talkback hour here on the Rob Snow Show on City News. Gary's in Navan. Best thing that ever happened was when Navan took over Ottawa. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, you better believe it, Rob.
Yep. Home of the 50-horse hitch, Gary. Home of the 50-horse hitch.
Yes, sir. Now, you mentioned how the protesters were causing incredible harm downtown Ottawa, but I mean, have our governments not caused even more harm to this country over the past 2 years? Now, one of the their demands, of course, is that Canada become a free country again. I believe that to one extent because we've had a government that has said to its people, if you do not take a vaccine, all right, you will lose your job. We will take away your livelihood and your ability to put food on the table. So when we've reached that sort of point in our country, we do not live in a free country anymore. When governments will come to small business and say, you have to shut your doors, we do not live in a free country anymore. I mean, you're so concerned about the bloody Rideau Centre. That was a call of the owners of the Rideau Centre. Because people aren't going to wear masks. Well, the data is already out. The CDC has already come out and say the masks do not work. All right. So,
well, nevertheless, I'm sure, Gary, you're probably a good law and order guy, and you think people should follow the rules, right? I bet you're a law and order guy. You're probably pro-police, the whole thing, right? You think probably, if anything, we should be tougher on people who break rules, Gary. I bet that's the way you are, right?
Sure,
right. Well, we have a rule in place that if you're in the Rideau Centre, you have to wear a mask.
Well, what I'm saying,
or if you're in a hotel lobby, you have to wear a mask.
It doesn't make sense anymore, Rob. And we've got Britain moving towards it now that says, look, we've made mistakes.
Well, you know what? Is this how we're going to conduct ourselves? We're just going to follow the rules that we think make sense? We're just going to obey the laws that we think make sense?
When it defies common sense, Rob, people have to start to stand up. And we're so past common sense now, we do need these sort of protests. And I think they do represent the vast majority of Canadians. I'm telling you that right now.
You know what? I don't think the vast majority of Canadians approve of,
I've so had it. I mean, again,
I know. I've had it too, Gary. I've had it too, man. I've been doing COVID shows for 2 years. You don't think I've had it? Everybody's had it, man.
You don't think our freedoms have been violated when a government says to you, you either inject yourself or you lose your job? Is that a free country, Rob?
I think the country is pretty free when you can go drinking in public, urinating in public, smoking dope in public, violate every noise bylaw in public, and park in the middle of the street for a goddamn week. Be back after the news. City News.
#1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, February 2nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 1 degree. Here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson says small businesses hanging on by a thread are almost down for the count now due to the disruption from the trucker protest convoy. The mayor tells City News he's worried now that people are starting to protest the protesters. Watson says one person has been charged with a weapons offense. Chances are there are other weapons in the convoy. He says police do have to be responsible in their approach to end this protest. He does say things like an injunction are on the table to consider to move that along. A further update is scheduled this afternoon from city officials at 2 o'clock. It looks like the price of oil and the price of refined product will remain high. The APEC Plus alliance has added a little more production, but the price per barrel expected to remain high, coupled with fears over major oil producer Russia invading Ukraine. It means the price for refined products like gasoline expected to remain high as well. The province continues to see a drop in hospitalization and the number of people needing intensive care. Hospital cases down by 152 from yesterday, now under 3,000. ICU numbers are also down by 13. There are 555, though, needing that level of care. There have been 72 more deaths in Ontario blamed on COVID-19. Now, under 4,000 new cases are being reported across the province today with the limited testing. 283 are in Ottawa. Leeds, Grenville, Lanark has 65. There are 36 in Eastern Ontario, 29 additional cases in Renfrew. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Oh, you people know how to work me up, don't you? Don't you? Don't you? Thank goodness I took my blood pressure medication this morning. 10:32, Rob Snow Show. Second half. Okay. I try to be... I try to disagree without being disagreeable, and always keep in mind that it's about the battle of ideas. Okay, that's always kind of been my mantra when I do open line talk radio. So I will try to do better. Okay, sometimes I should not have used that language. Should not say the GD. Oh, my parents would not be impressed. Helen in Westboro. Helen.
Hi.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the way you're speaking is the way I felt about some of your comments this week. That's why I didn't call.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But first of all, I totally agree with the concept of the protest. I was happy when they came here. Mm-hmm. And so were many Canadians.
Sure.
There are many people in Ottawa lining the bridges and so on. And that's good. I would have set a 3-day limit if I was an organizer with the truckers.
Okay.
If I was Mother Trucker or Grandma Trucker or whoever. They don't have an organization behind them. They're impromptu. They just started this. BLM has a big organization with many, many, many millions of dollars, okay? So this is an impromptu organization. For the 3 days that they were here, it was fine. They should have left then. But they might have left if Trudeau, with his security, or one of his, it could have been his justice minister or health minister or whatever, met with them. And we're not saying they meet with the whole convoy. You meet with 2 of the leaders, and you have a discussion. Or if Mayor Watson had met with them.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
So they didn't, and they should have. And if they'd done that, it would have shown that they're being listened to.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's now. I think they should go now. I think they're wearing out their welcome. Okay.
Oh, I would
now.
suspect so. I mean, imagine if they were parked on, I don't know, Richmond Road or something, honking horns for 6 days, right outside your place there, Westboro.
Well,
you know.
As I said, I lived on Nepean and O'Connor, and I've caught anyway. But and I could hear them honking their horns when they were coming in here in Westboro. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But no, I said 3 days should have been the limit. But if they'd been treated with some respect, and to say that they'd say "F you," some of them do. I don't know what any of the I don't go to demonstrations downtown anymore. I thought of going to this one, and I thought no. I thought of donating to them when they were up about $800,000, and I thought I don't know where that money's going to. I won't. I'll find some other way to support them.
You will morally support them, I guess.
Yes,
Helen.
absolutely morally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have questioned. Here we've had Omicron has been here in Ottawa. Remember, it was the first city in the country to report a case of the Omicron variant. So it's been here since November anyway, right? So what are we really accomplishing with this vaccine mandate and keeping truck drivers from crossing the Canada-U.S. border? What is this really accomplishing? Is it really stopping the spread of Omicron? I think that's highly doubtful. Okay?
Rob, you're absolutely right. I'd give you a hug right now.
I will grant you that, but just the 6 days of boorishness is just a little too much for people.
I grant you that, but they're not all boorish, and there's been a lot of there's been less trouble than I thought there would be. Thank God.
Well, okay. All right, Helen. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. People are talking about options. Like, what are the options, right? One option is let it run its course, I guess. And that seems to be, so far, the preferred option of law enforcement is to just kind of let it run its course. Don't do anything that would raise the temperature. Do nothing. Keep a watchful eye, keep channels of communication open, and that's about it. Another option, I guess, is what Bob Chiarelli said yesterday, and you send the city's legal team down to court, you get an injunction, and law enforcement moves in and enforces the injunction and says, look, you've had your time, but your time is up, and you have to go by order of a judge, or we're going to impound your vehicle. Or you don't even bother with that, and you just move in, and in the dead of night with a show of force, and you physically remove the protesters and their vehicles, and you make sure no more vehicles can make their way into the core. These are just some of the options that have been floated about, and they all carry their own risks and come with their own pitfalls. So 750-1310. Let's take this line and see what happens in the West End. Brent, you're on City News. Brent.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
All right. A lot of that this week.
80% of the time, but
but not on this one.
I honestly, I always get your side of the story. I always do, but I can't get it this time.
Okay. Where do we part ways, Brent? Where do we part ways?
Even just the acknowledgement. Justin Trudeau is doing exactly what he always tries to do in situations. Bury my head in the sand and wait for the money to take over. Well, if he had to acknowledge them on their way instead of knocking them down, if he had to acknowledge the overpass is full of people. I drove down with these guys from Deep River to Arnprior, and then from Arnprior right into Ottawa, right to the Pinecrest exit.
Yeah.
And you had thousands. There was over 1,000 people in Cobden, I bet. Cobden. I don't think they have 1,000 people there.
I doubt they do.
There's been no acknowledgement. Hell, if he had made a speech once a day and acknowledged them even there. Now, where's it going? I think that.
But how, Brent? Brent, just let me interrupt. Okay. Why, if you're if you're a longtime listener, I'm no fan of the Trudeau government. Okay.
That's right.
Why would you put? Let's put our thinking caps on here. Why would you acknowledge protesters who? I mean, they hired a helicopter to fly around the Peace Tower with a banner that said "F you." Why would you acknowledge those people?
Yeah, well,
to what end? To what end? To what end?
He's not acknowledging them, and he's not acknowledging the overpasses and side roads and bonfires of people that were just from all these things that apparently happened. There's lots of things that have been debunked too. Like the CTV looked into the ambulance crisis. They interviewed them. They pulled the numbers, and nobody actually died down there. Josh Pringle, CTV News, found out that never happened. Like just throwing poop at the wall and waiting for it to stick.
Okay. Okay. I don't know about that. Okay. But I didn't hear that.
I think they're going to. I think you're near the end because I think that what you said was right. They're going to piddle out. The Frenchmen are going back to Quebec for their shot this weekend.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan already pulled their mandates. They made a date. Quebec's pulling theirs already. Even before there's 90,000 trucks headed to DC. That's registered trucks so far this season. Whether they show up or not, who knows? But they've already won. They're going to go and do. They've got acknowledgement from everybody else. The only person not acknowledging them is guess who?
Right.
And that's why they're still there. But I think you're right. They are going to piddle out here whenever.
See, the thing is. If you have, let's say we have whatever we have. Let's say we have 300 protesters in town right now, down from whatever it was, right? 10,000 or something. See, if you have 300 people and they're protesting on the Hill, not even a big deal, right? Doesn't cause really any disruption at all. Everybody goes about their business, and but when you have 300 trucks or even 30 trucks, depending on where they're placed, well, that causes a lot of disruption, as obviously as we've seen. And some, what would you think of this, Brent? Some of the callers said this, like, what if we could get these trucks out of the core and just let the protests continue?
Hey, and do you not think, Bob, that if we had just a shred of acknowledgement from Justin Trudeau, other than even Ford, just shrugged it off. Yeah, you said what you said. Get out of here. We're not even addressing your claims are invalid. All the people that stood on the overpasses claims or wishes are invalid. Every working
right. So So you think it's like a basket of deplorables kind of moment, like you've been.
See, that's what I mean. I usually agree with you, but I don't want to say you're letting me down here, but I'm disappointed, Rob.
No, but you think for politicians they've painted you all with the same brush, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's like a Hillary Clinton. You're a bunch of a basket of deplorables. Yeah,
Unfortunately, most of us are back to work this week during the week with making the money.
Yeah,
we have to now. A lot of people still are working. Probably the 300 truckers that are still floating around the city with close to 1,000 hanging out in the truck stops waiting to be called. They shouldn't be holding the city hostage, but they should get some acknowledgement. Don't you agree?
I don't know if you acknowledge people who, want to give you the middle finger. I just don't know why you would acknowledge people who are driving around with giant signs that say F you. Brent, keep on listening, buddy. Keep on. Nobody ever said we were going to agree on everything. Jeff in Ottawa. Jeff.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, Jeff.
I was hoping I could put a contrast to Mr. Trudeau's father and his son. In the early 70s, you had the FLQ were killing members of the Quebec legislature and the British diplomat.
Yeah.
And they were murdering these people.
Yeah.
And Mr. Trudeau...
Pierre Laporte was murdered, sir. Murdered. Yeah.
He stood up to the FLQ.
Yes, we did.
He was even on the streets. He went to the house.
Yeah.
He stood up in the house. He didn't run and hide. I know you're saying that, yes, he has...
Yeah, well, I know, but we don't... We know...
Can I finish what I was saying?
You know what, Jeff?
Detail attention.
No, you can't, if you're going to talk to me like that. Leslie in Ottawa, you're on the air. Leslie, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Rob.
Yes, Leslie, go ahead.
My call.
Yeah.
I'll be transparent. I'm definitely in support of this protest.
Okay.
And you have to ask, how did we get here in the first place? And for one thing, let's start. And I'm sorry, I might trigger you. You're one of the few people I like.
Trigger me. Okay. Yeah, don't worry about triggering me, Leslie. Okay.
That the response from the media, it seems to be so one-sided and so focused on demonizing these individuals that are going through this inconvenience to themselves, right? How did we come to this point in the first place? And there's a focus of maybe an individual who did one bad act here, a bad act there, another bad act there. Yeah. But it's like we're not focusing on the heart of the issue. And it's like when that gentleman asked you, he said, what's the greater inconvenience? Something to the effect of, what's the greater inconvenience? The government's forcing you, right, to take this jab, or you can't live, you can't travel, taking away all your guaranteed civil liberties,
right?
Guaranteed, quote, quote, or and then you focused on the urination, and how many people were urinating? Obviously they're not. Anyways, it's not part of the mandate of the protest. Now do the politicians too, okay? Yeah. They don't have to acquiesce to all the demands, but yes, they have to communicate, or they're just as guilty for causing the levels of disruption that's going on right now. Just look at what's been going on for the last 2 years, okay?
Yeah.
And here's another thing. I'm not going to get into details but there are by the thousands, okay, that are not taking knowledge of medical professionals that have opinions that do not align with what we've been force-fed for the last 2 years by politicians and media. There seems to be a silence.
You think the politicians and the media are in cahoots, Leslie?
No, please. No? Don't let me start.
Okay, all right.
That if you go against the narrative, it's like people are afraid to lose their jobs. Now, I'm speculating. That's just an opinion, okay?
Right. Okay.
But these people need to be given a voice also. So right now we're in a desperate situation. That's why they showed up. That's why they're willing to do what they're doing right now. Trust me, they'd rather be at home doing their own thing. No, that they have to be acknowledged, yes.
Right. But this is about cross-border trucking, right? It's about cross-border trucking.
It's bigger than that.
Right? It's bigger than that. Okay.
Of course.
All right. Okay.
It involves the whole country. Why do you think these similar protests are sparking up around the world? There's a lot of conversation around that. I have just curious a question for you, Rob. Do you acknowledge a lot of censoring of opinions on social media, even credible individuals, doctors that might example?
Well, I don't know. I don't control the algorithms of social media, sir.
But do you acknowledge that there's been a lot of censorship going on, like Dr. Malone? They took off Twitter, right? The inventor of the mRNA vaccine.
I don't even know who that is. Who's Dr. Malone?
And your media telling us what reality is, trying to shape our reality.
I'm not trying to shape anybody's reality.
Well, you're not very informed.
I'm not very informed? Okay. All right.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. When you lack these bits of information and it's not being communicated to us, isn't that what the media is about? To give an unbiased, unvarnished.
No, I'm totally biased. I never pretended not to be biased. I'm not a journalist. I'm a broadcaster. There's a big difference, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Rob.
Yeah. Leslie.
You're good at what you do.
Yeah.
That's fine. I respect that.
Yeah. See, maybe you think that's a difference between me and some other journalists. Some other journalists say they're totally unbiased when they're totally biased. At least I tell you right up front, Leslie, I'm biased. We have to stop. 10:47, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries. Started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting, and anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not, but more so now because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff, and then again, their situations and their circumstances change.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Okay, home stretch of the Talk Back Hour on the Rob Snow Show on City News. Man, when I said it's your last chance to have at me because I'm away on Thursday and Friday, boy, some people really want to have at me today, don't they? That's okay, though. That's the way it goes. Luke in Barrhaven. Luke, you're on City News.
How's it going, Rob?
It goes, sir.
Just calling about that old tool there.
Yeah.
I personally, I don't think he's going to last.
Oh, no, I don't think so either.
You lose the support of majority of your party, right? It's just like you're playing hockey. If you're a captain of the hockey team and you're not doing nothing for the team, and well, they're not going to keep your ass there. Sorry, my language. But,
that's okay. Yeah.
And I think, like other people have said, I think.
Well, it's like the coach, to stick with your sports thing. It's like they say the coach has lost the room. Like this guy's lost the room, right? So
yeah, for sure. And I agree with a lot of people. I think Poilievre would make an awesome candidate. And I hope he goes for it. And I hope he puts Trudeau to shame, and I hope he takes over this country because we need someone like Poilievre.
Okay. Well, I think he's been plotting and scheming all along, even though every time I put it to him, and I put it to him, I think twice in the last month, are you actively trying to undermine your leader? Do you want to be the leader? He's like, no, I support the leader. Well, we'll see we'll see how long it is before he declares if indeed this is Aaron O'Toole's last day on the job. So
we'll see. And just one more thing, Rob, before I let you go. I'm a trucker in Ottawa, and I still love you, buddy.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Okay. You're the one to call then if I need a lift somewhere, or I need someone to come start my car. Yeah. I mean, the Conservative caucus is. It's meeting right now, and I'm told it could be a long meeting because it's virtual and. Apparently, everyone can have their say. So what do they have? How many MPs? They got like 119 MPs, and if they all get a few minutes, it could be a long day, right? But I just think, he's done. I think he's done. He either loses the vote outright, and all it takes is a simple majority of caucus to do that, and the Rebels say they have the votes. But I think even if he squeaks through, you're just mortally wounded by the events of the last 48 hours. The very fact that they're voting on it. It's like a fatal political blow. If close to half of his own caucus can't get behind him, I don't see how he continues as leader. I think of Joe Clark like 40 years ago. What year was that? 81, I guess. He got 66% of the delegates. And he said that wasn't good enough. There needs to be a strong mandate for the leader of any party. And what did he do? He stepped down and there was a leadership race. So, if you're Aaron O'Toole, you get by with, say, 50%, a little bit more. How do you continue to lead the party? You're just, done. You're a lame duck leader at that point. But that certainly, it escalated fast. That escalated fast. The temperature was really raised that week, this week on that. And can you imagine, everything that's going on and all the demands for resignations of people, and it's Aaron O'Toole is the guy that's losing his job after this week? Yeah. That's why they say, if you're in politics and you want a friend, get a dog. Diane in Bayshore. Diane.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Diane.
I support the truckers.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't agree with is I think there was a lot of mistakes all the way around. And first of all, they should have never allowed the big rigs into the downtown core.
Okay.
And number two, the statues should have been protected. There should have been some kind of a barrier or something around, because this has happened before, that somebody urinated on a statue. It's not the first time.
I remember distinctly somebody was in big, in the War Memorial. I remember those young guys did their business on the War Memorial, and everybody was mad.
They should have been aware of that.
Yeah.
That could happen, and I think it's because they go there and hide behind it or whatever they do, because there wasn't any porta potties.
Yeah.
So they should have provided some more of that. But I think that the truckers should have put on masks when they went into the restaurants. They could have used the washrooms if they had their mask on, and they could have got food.
Right. Okay.
Is that right?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's so many reports, people being bullies and belligerent and rude and everything else.
I have witnessed that myself, and it had nothing to do with protesters.
Yeah.
Now, the two people that were arrested, for criminal charges or whatever.
Yeah.
They were not truckers. They were City of Ottawa people.
Oh, that's not my understanding, ma'am.
Yes, they said that on. They said that on the.
Okay,
on the radio.
I'll have to listen to that again. But somebody was charged with carrying. Somebody was charged with carrying a weapon to a meeting.
And they said they were the citizens of Ottawa.
Oh, citizens of citizens of Ottawa. Okay.
They lived in Ottawa.
Lived in Ottawa.
No,
okay.
they weren't from out of town.
Okay.
So I mean, we got to and another thing is, I think they might move out anyway because I think they have plans now to take up this in Toronto.
Well, from what I've heard on the news is that they want to go to Toronto, protest against Doug Ford, but also they want to go to Carnival is starting in Quebec City, right? So they want to go there and
now I could also
give Legault a piece of his mind, and that's as my friend Carl Belanger said. That's why Legault pulled back on this idea of taxing the unvaccinated because of this trucker thing.
And I think if Justin Trudeau had have just done something to come out, don't they have a big screen there? Couldn't he have gone on the screen and talk?
But again, and I'm not here to defend Justin Trudeau,
I know it's a security thing, but if you're on a screen, how is
why would you talk to people who have done nothing for days except drive around with giant signs that say "F you"? Right? Why? Hey, let me go meet these people who want me to go do unmentionables to myself. Jordan in Ottawa. Jordan.
Hello, how's it going today?
It goes, sir. Very quickly, Jordan. We're a little tight on time coming up against the news here.
I just wanted to say that I'm for the truckers.
Yeah.
And that I think that it needs to be acknowledged that Trudeau's calling them all racist, but he's the one wearing blackface and doing a bunch of other racist things, like putting the pride flag in Terry Fox's hand. And
yeah, I don't see you lost me there. I'll get you on the blackface. You can't even remember how many times he's worn blackface. Pride, Terry Fox, don't know anything about that. 11 o'clock news coming up. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, February 2nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 1 degree, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. As Ottawa residents reach their limit with the convoy and begin counter-protests now, the city's mayor is warning that at least some of the convoy supporters may be armed. Here's City News reporter Jason White.
The costs of this protest are adding up. The cost to residents' mental health, the cost to city coffers, and the cost to small businesses.
And there's no empathy or understanding on the part of this group. They're acting like boors and bullies.
But Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson adds there's a good chance some of those boors and bullies in the convoy have weapons. He worries about the chance of violence, especially as residents begin counter-protests.
While I admire people standing up to them, and I think that's gutsy, I just don't want to see any of our residents harmed or hurt.
He says the convoy blockade will not be allowed to continue forever, but that police have to minimize the chance of someone getting hurt or even killed. Jason White, City News.
Now, the Ottawa Police hands-off approach to this protest has been met with anger from the community. Chris Curry's now this morning with more from the head of the police union. He says they're acting no different than they would with any other large protest.
Whether it's for Black Lives Matter, Indigenous relations, or the ongoing anti-vaccine demonstrations, Matt Scoff tells me officers are to remain neutral.
There's no difference in this protest than any other one. The same decisions are being contemplated. The same decisions are being made. The officers are acting in the exact same fashion.
He's the head of the police union and reminds officers to pay attention around social media and moments in time that aren't captured with the necessary context. He says if arrests are made, it's due to an overt act in front of an officer that would be no different than any other demonstration. Chris Curry's City News.
City News time 11:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A huge area affected with this storm for us today, tomorrow, even into Friday, from Windsor all the way to Ottawa and beyond. We'll have a mix of rain and snow today, 2 to 5 centimeters, a light southwest wind, the high near +1. Could collect another 5+ centimeters of snow tonight, with the temperature near 1 degree through the evening and then slowly dropping. For today, the high +1.
And right now it's 1 degree in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls. The province continues to see a drop in hospitalizations and the number of people needing intensive care. Hospital cases in Ontario down by 152 from yesterday, under 3,000 now altogether. ICU numbers are also down by 13 to 555. There have also been 72 more deaths in Ontario blamed on COVID-19. The fate of Conservative leader Erin O'Toole lies in the hands of his own MPs. More from City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
The meeting is underway, and at some point this morning, we are expecting MPs to hold a secret ballot vote. If more than half of the MPs vote against Erin O'Toole, then he's out, and an interim leader is picked while the party organizes a leadership race. This all began Monday when a third of the caucus signed a letter to launch this leadership review under the Reform Act, including Alberta's Garnet Jennis, who believes it's time for a change.
We're not seeing what we need to from the leadership right now.
Those angry with O'Toole point to his election loss and flip-flopping on key issues, but supporters argue infighting like this only weakens the party. O'Toole has called this a time of reckoning and welcomes a vote. However, multiple reports say yesterday he was calling MPs and making last-minute promises to try and keep his job. If O'Toole does win the caucus vote, he still has to face an automatic leadership review by members at the next party convention scheduled for next year. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
It's winter time and the weather's fine. The snow on the woods and field when I reveal my snowmobile. Thrill by gully and hill. Baby, it'll make you feel like an outdoor meal on a snowmobile. Listen to the sound of the bells go round when the winter carnival's here. And oh, what fun at the crack of the gun when the whole gang disappears. The race is on from the bush to the pond and back where the judges feel you've won their seal. For the snowmobile, you've won their seal. For the snowmobile.
All right, let's jump into it. It's time for Valley View. Bruce McIntyre is back, Eganville leader.
on a snowmobile.
Where's my paper?
Rob, I wish I could help you.
You're my midweek paper boy. I don't have my copy of the Eganville Leader, my electronic copy. So
I too am.
I kind of have to wing it this week, Bruce. So
we're winging. We can talk truck convoy. We had a little bit of action down there on the Renfrew County side.
Okay, tell me all about it.
Well, our MP was down there. A little bit of a shocker, I know, for the people who are familiar with our MP.
Right.
And she was there giving full support. That is our MP, Cheryl Gallant, who is our 20-year login. And it was interesting, to say the least. She showed support for the truckers. And we had a complement of truckers going down, as a matter of fact, from both Pembroke and Chalk River and Eganville and Renfrew.
Well, I was just, we're doing our open line hour here, the talkback hour, and some of the callers were in the convoy all the way from Deep River on down. So, yeah,
it was interesting. We also had one of our counselors, Tim Scheisen, is on Bonaire Valley Council, and he is a truck driver, second generation, and he found it very emotional. To put it bluntly, he was kind of torn as both an elected official and as a trucker, and he was saying it was tough for him. He said we're doing everyday jobs, and to carry that over to the elected role, he's had to balance some fences sometimes. So Tim is it's been tough for him. He had a toddler there as well, his grandchild. So it was interesting to get from perspective that way.
So he's a counselor, though, right?
He is a counselor, first-term counselor, and he is
at what level? At what level? Sorry.
Counselor, just a regular elected official, first term.
Yeah, but like for the county or for
I'm sorry, Bonaire Valley.
Bonaire Valley, yeah.
Which is Eganville and Foymont.
Right. Okay, all right.
And he said basically standing up for our freedom, and he's going to carry that over to the council table to see what goes on. It'll be interesting. And we have as well, we're with COVID, Rob, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here with COVID. We are now in the province's good hands. We take the Renfrew County District Health Unit has no longer taking the bookings for the COVID vaccines, and they're putting it in the hands of the province, and that could be a good thing. It gives the health unit the opportunity to put more resources into hands-on approach. I know they've been kind of shifting staff everywhere, and like all health units, they've been trying to go short-staffed and go with the flow, and now they're going to be going into the schools and going into the health centers to do the third vaccination. They've had a very good response. The children are still not vaccinated, though. Dr. Cushman is still concerned the level of children in the appropriate brackets are not getting vaccinated as well as the adults. And I'm not sure if that's a trend across the province, but for Renfrew County, it's sticking out like a sore thumb. We've been very good for getting our vaccines in for adults, and but the children, no. The youth has not been bouncing back as Dr. Cushman would like.
So this counselor for Bonaire Valley, this is interesting. So he's a truck driver, but at the same time he's a counselor. So what's the policy for the level of government that he represents? Do you have to be, for example, if you're an employee with that level of government, do you have to be fully vaxxed in order to work? That'd be interesting.
That'd be very interesting. He is Tim's a bit of a wild card. He's a true Valley boy.
Yeah.
He goes against the grain.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether he's been fully vaccinated or not. That's the question. I know his company is Scheisen and Son.
No, but I'm wondering, like if I'm working for the municipality in Eganville.
Oh yes.
Do I have to be fully vaccinated, for example?
No.
You don't have to be. Okay.
No,
okay. Sorry, Bruce.
Bonaire Valley is one of the few in the county that does not have a vaccine policy. Renfrew does, Pembroke does, Deep River, but Bonaire Valley no. And the reason was Mayor Jennifer Murphy, when back in December, she said we have enough trouble retaining staff.
Yeah.
We have enough trouble hiring staff, and so we're not going to do it unless it's a real issue. Unless we have a shortage of staff, we're not going to bring in the vaccine policy. And that's been interesting. As far as the other workers go, I'm not sure how they feel about it, but they don't have the policy in there, so interesting. I haven't heard anything back about it yet.
Well, it's just, and this was one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I just heard it through the grapevine, for example, that the volunteer fire department in Killaloe, there's a bunch of people that aren't vaccinated and they can't be volunteer firefighters, right? And it's hard to attract people to be volunteer firefighters in some of these smaller municipalities,
They have a tough time as it is, yeah. It's
like, I think you had an ad in the paper last week. They're looking for volunteer firefighters.
We always do. They need a complement of 25. That's because they have two stations.
Yeah.
Both Killaloe and Round Lake, they need a complement of 25, and they don't have that right now. That's not uncommon for a lot of the volunteer fire departments. That's their goal, is 25, but where they get it is very unlikely. Some do. I know Renfrew has a complement of full-time and part-time, and they're able to, part-time being volunteer, they do meet the quota there. But if you're having like we talked about before, Rob, up north of Deep River, between Deep River and Manawa,
there's no fire service.
There is no fire services. Yeah. So God help you if you get a car accident, you're upside down,
big
hanging
trouble.
by a seatbelt.
Yeah, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. Yeah, you are.
They only have.
Sorry, Bruce.
They only have 275 full-time residents, and it's tough to get them, but they don't have them. So they basically abandon their fire services, and they just go from there. They either go to Mattawa or they go to Deep River.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Cheryl Gallant and how long she's been elected, right? Like, she's one of the longest-serving members of Parliament for the Conservatives now, because she goes back to the Canadian Alliance days, right? So
yes, she was the first. She and Scott Reid were the first.
Her and Scott Reid, yeah. So this is really interesting because they're playing a central role in this whole O'Toole thing today that's happening with the Conservative caucus and the move to get rid of O'Toole, because they are I know Cheryl Gallant being one of the longest serving members, they're going to be the ones who basically count the vote. She'll be one of the ones who counts the votes. So
she is, even though she's been there 20 years, Rob, she doesn't have a lot of sway in the caucus.
No, but she'll get a vote. She'll get a vote.
She will get a vote.
And I suspect I know which way she would vote too. So
which way do you think she's leaning?
Well, I would imagine. I mean, she's not going to go for a conservative leader who ran as True Blue and then wanted to have a carbon tax, right? That's not Cheryl Gallant's style, I don't think.
She was the only MP to vote against the Paris Accord.
Right, so there you go. Right, yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
I think your answer's there.
Yep.
And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. You're probably more in tune with the O'Toole factor than I am. What's the skivvy?
Well, I mean, the very fact that they're having a vote is doing just irreparable damage to him.
Yeah.
Right. It's just the very fact that it is where it is. It's just terrible for him. It's very untenable.
Very untenable. Did you happen to see the OPP report for the Ottawa Valley?
No.
Well, you're looking for a snowmobile, Rob.
Oh, you're looking for a snowmobile. Missing.
The OPP are on the lookout for a stolen snowmobile. It was a 2002 Polaris, and about to go with our theme song today, the snowmobile song.
Yeah.
It's not funny. I mean, it's a very expensive unit.
Sure.
It's that's and I should mention as well that I was just speaking of Cheryl. Just to begin here, the Cheryl Gallant says the enemy is not the trucking community and supporters outside the gates of Parliament, but it is. It is. Bear with me here, Rob. Again, to your listeners out there, I apologize for having technical difficulties, but she ripped into the PM saying it's his perceived indifference. And she was very popular among the Renfrew County contingent.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
We're not up here, we're not a big Liberal Trudeau fan, to be honest with you. You could probably stuff the number of Liberals into a phone booth.
It's
the pendulum has swung from 20 years ago when Len Hopkins was our MP. Long time, Liberals were flying everywhere. They used to get 1,000 out to the convention. Now you're lucky to get 10.
It's wild the way that's totally flipped. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
in
the Ottawa Valley.
1-2 generations. It's totally gone from that was really a kind of a Liberal stronghold for a long time.
It was the Liberal stronghold in the Eastern Ontario, as far as rural Ontario.
Rural Ontario. Yeah.
It's really made the flip there. So she said that the Prime Minister has refused Aaron O'Toole's suggestion that he at least meet with the organizers of the Freedom Convoy, and Mr. O'Toole was trying to make that happen. It didn't work out with the Prime Minister meeting him with Mr. O'Toole, but that's the way it goes. And Cheryl's actually, she was in favor of Mr. O'Toole in that that momentum there. But when the vote comes, I don't think she'll be a big favorite. As you mentioned, the carbon tax is not a big selling feature here in the Ottawa Valley. Very far from it.
Okay. What are you paying for gas up there?
I am paying $1.42.
Oh.
And I know the reserve, Golden Lake, is $1.31.
Wow.
So
that's about a dime cheaper than Ottawa. I'm surprised to hear that. Okay, yeah.
I'm in Ottawa today. I'm looking at $1.51 on Meadowlands Road.
Okay, all right. You're in Ottawa today. Okay.
Yeah.
So I won't ask you if it's snowing in Eganville then. Okay.
Well, we've got the storm coming, and we're going to batten down the hatches. That's for sure. We welcome the storm up here. The snowmobilers are looking forward to it. I know we had some freezing rain this morning, which wasn't pleasant driving in.
Yeah.
Far from it.
Okay. Hey, Bruce. Good to have the update, though. Great stuff. We'll talk soon.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay.
We'll be back in fighting form.
As long as it's on newsstands, right?
That's correct. $2. It's on their newsstands, and it's 6,350 printed editions go out, and it's the largest circulation. It's by far the largest. Gerald says, my owner says it is the largest weekly in Ontario as far as subscription rate goes for the base population.
Surprised.
We have 1,000 in Eganville.
Awesome.
So
thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Rob, and we'll chat next week at a better forum.
All right, Bruce. Bye-bye. Bruce McIntyre, Valley correspondent. Eganville leader out now, weekly, $2, tax in. 11:17, Rob Snow Show, City News.
So the birth of absinthe was 2002, I think, 2003, and I was working at Urban Bistro, happily, where Allium is now. And then the space where Holland Cafe was came up. It's on the corner of Spencer and Holland. And I spoke to the landlord, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of other people, but he and I just, got along super well, and he put a lot of faith in me. So Carmen Turner is his name. He gave me the lease to the place and really pretty much gave me all the equipment in the place. So I was really lucky. I've been really lucky with landlords that way, actually, both my current landlord and Carmen Turner. Because if there hadn't been Carmen Turner, there wouldn't have been Absinthe. So we were there for a few years and just sort of outgrew the place. And then now we're here. It's obviously been tough, and it's been tough for everyone. I mean, that's been the big democratic sweep of in restaurants and the hospitality and the arts that we were talking about earlier. It's like everybody's been impacted pretty much the same. From everybody that I talked to, we're down 80%. We're climbing out now. I think one of the saddest things is everybody, we went down to 2 employees from 25, and we're now at 4, and we're bringing 2 new people on this week, so we'll be at 6. So it's little steps. So it's been tough. It's I've got the most expensive clubhouse ever here, because some days you come and you don't do any business, but you're here. But I'm grateful for what I do have. I think everybody's optimistic now, not necessarily just about the vaccine, but about the vaccine, spraying, being able to be outside. I think you're going to see a lot of pop-up things happen in parking lots and on sidewalks and all, and like that, rather than being actually inside somebody's commerce. I think we'd like to take it outside. I know my staff would. My staff like the outdoors now, all of a sudden, all 4 of us. 6 soon. But we'll be doing some business in the patio in the parking lot, and we have a patio out front. And I think I hope other restaurants and stores will do the same. I hope that they take advantage of the sidewalk and doing sort of, guerrilla marketing and stuff like that, and really shaking it up a bit. You can find us at Absinthe Cafe at 1208 Wellington Street West in Hintonburg, and you can find us online at absinthecafe.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So the RCMP moved in yesterday to break up a trucker protest that's been blocking traffic in southern Alberta at the U.S. border, but then announced that the negotiations had proven futile and it was time to enforce the law. So let's get the latest on this. This is all unfolding in a place called Coutts, Alberta. And Tom Ross joins us. He's with City News 660 in Calgary. Hi there, Tom.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Great to hear. Tell me about what's been happening in Coutts, Alberta.
Well, over the weekend, we had a blockade of truckers and their supporters, similar to what we've seen in Ottawa, kind of just completely stalled traffic on the Canadian side of the border, preventing people from going between Canada and the U.S. This was allowed to just go on throughout the weekend. We heard lots of truckers were stranded over there. They got goods and spoilables and things like that. And there's travelers that are stuck over there. But police finally decided to try to move in, as you mentioned, yesterday afternoon. But again, that hasn't quite broken it up yet. While they went in saying that they're going to arrest people for this unlawful blockade, some of them were like, okay, and they jetted off north and went on their merry way. But quite a few dozen, around 100, I think, around this point, are still at the border. They're still blocking traffic. It's still impassable at the moment. And then also the other thing that happened yesterday, too, was separate smaller blockades popped up as well. Just a few hours north of the border, there was a couple of trucks, the semi-trucks and pickups that blocked a bridge on a major highway south of the town called Fort Macleod. So even though they've tried to break this up at Coutts, it hasn't ended yet, and it seems to have, sprouted up more smaller protests as well.
What makes the Coutts border crossing significant? As I understand, a lot of traffic goes through, a lot of cross-border traffic, Tom.
Yeah, that's our major border crossing here. That's the one that's open for the most hours. It's big, so it facilitates all the trucker traffic, all the shipping, all that kind of stuff. We do have a couple of smaller borders, and one of them is just maybe 45 minutes an hour west of Coutts, but it really mostly only facilitates some travelers. And we did get a call from one person who was stuck at Coutts for 2 days, decided to go west, go through that other border crossing, and then he got stuck at the blockade at the bridge, so at the Fort Macleod. So again, it's just been a bit of a nightmare for a lot of people.
Okay. So what unfolded yesterday when the Mounties went in there to try to bust this thing up? What happened?
Well, it was pretty tame, and a lot of people pointed this out, rightfully so, was that, when we see some things like pipeline protests on Indigenous land, the RCMP, they've gone in and they've been armed to the teeth, frankly. But the officers here in the Coutts border crossing, they didn't have any weapons. They're wearing their regular uniforms. They walked up to the windows of the trucks and they said, essentially, please move on your way or we'll give you a ticket. And some of them did, but the rest of them, I guess, really called their bluff. And they stuck there, and then more supporters rolled in, driving down ditches and stuff in tractors, and they rolled up to support as well. They broke through a police barrier a little bit and pushed the RCMP back, and that's where we stand now.
Okay. What has the Premier said, Premier Kenney?
Last night, he had a bit of a press conference after his trip to Washington, D.C., and he said that he supports the right to protest, but he does believe that this is an unlawful blockade, and he does call on the people to move on. But again, this points to a little bit of the dispute that a lot of people are pointing out, is that when people block a pipeline, he's forceful, and he's like, these people need to get on their way, need the police to get in there and move it. And he does want the police to go in and break up this blockade because he obviously understands the economic implications of blocking such a major border crossing. But it hasn't been as forceful, it seems. There's a lot of criticism around that. But yeah, he has been saying that, kind of trying to play both sides almost a little bit, where he's like, there's a lot of good people down there and, we support, maybe rolling back some of the vaccination mandates in terms of truckers, but also it's not good to block a major border crossing like this at the same time.
Okay. What do they want? What do they want?
They say that they want the vaccination mandates for truckers gone, but then it's similar like what we've seen in Ottawa, though. It's the same sort of rhetoric where we see these people saying that, it's not just about vaccination. You cannot just say this is about, just the vaccines. They're talking about, we want the government gone and we want all this other stuff. And they got people that are flying flags that are, not appropriate in any way. And they're just, it's hard to point down what their singular goals are other than to just disrupt life and hopefully force people to, remove all these public health measures.
Okay. What's Coutts like? I mean, Ottawa's the city of 1 million people, the capital of a G7 country. What's life like in Coutts today?
This is a small town. Okay. We've talked to the mayor a few times, and this is a huge problem. Is that when you cross the border, you might stop and get some gas. You might get some stuff at a convenience store. That's essentially what their economy is going to rely on for right now. And they had none of that, and they've got people that are staying in the town. They're causing disruptions. There's people that, they don't want to go out of their homes because of this. The mayor is frustrated. The mayor is saying police need to step up and do something about this. And their lives are, again, they're completely on hold because of people that don't live there saying that life cannot continue on as normal because, they don't want to get a vaccine.
Okay. No sign it's going to end anytime soon, Tom.
It doesn't seem like it. We'll see what the police do today, but, they're going to have to respond with a lot more force, frankly, unfortunately, because obviously the methods to this point have not been effective.
All right. Thank you, Tom Ross. Greatly appreciated. Yep. Tom Ross, reporter, City News, 660 in Calgary. We'll be right back after the 11:30 news. We'll talk about how the city has been responding to this. I mean, remember, this is an election year in the city of Ottawa. There's there are political careers on the line. Mr. Watson is the mayor now. He's not going to be the mayor later this year. There's not going to be a big political price for him to pay either way, depending on what happens with this protest. But we've heard from Bob Chiarelli. We've heard from Catherine McKenney repeatedly. Have yet to hear from Diane Deans. We requested an interview with Diane Deans. Unavailable. Diane Deans, considered one of the front runners, if not the front runner for mayor of Ottawa right now. We're hoping that we can get Councillor Deans on a little bit later, but we're going to talk about all the kind of political dynamic to this locally in a municipal election year. Pat Aguccione is going to join me as well. Managing editor from your Community Voice newspapers, our City Hall insider. So that's all ahead. Rob Snow Show. This is City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, February 2nd. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's a mild 2 degrees with some clouds. Here's what's making news this hour. A third arrest has been made in relation to the ongoing trucker protests here in Ottawa. Police charged a 48-year-old man from Quebec in relation to threats and comments made on social media. With the protest into day 6, Mayor Jim Watson says small businesses are hanging on by a thread and are almost down for the count due to the disruptions. The mayor says police have to be responsible in their approach to end the protest and that an injunction should be on the table to start moving the protesters out of the city. A further update is scheduled for this afternoon from city officials. A meeting is underway to decide the fate of Conservative leader Erin O'Toole. The Conservative caucus is set to hold a vote to decide if he should remain on the job or be replaced after a leadership review process was triggered on Monday. The meeting is being held virtually due to the convoy protest, but multiple reports say that yesterday O'Toole was calling his Conservative MPs and making promises to try and secure their support. And the province continues to see a drop in hospitalizations and in the number of people needing intensive care. Hospital cases in Ontario are now under 3,000. ICU numbers are down by 13 to 555. There have been 72 more deaths in Ontario in relation to COVID-19. And of the under 4,000 new cases in the province, 283 are in Ottawa. Leeds Grenville Lanark has 65, 36 are in Eastern Ontario, and 29 are in Renfrew. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, ongoing coverage, protests, day 6. Sandra Milton is on with us now, City News. And Sandra is with the Lowertown Community Association. Sandra Milton, good morning. There we go.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm okay. How are you? More importantly, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
That's good. That's good. How is the demonstration impacting residents of Lowertown?
Well, I think we've had enough.
Okay.
The occupation of the downtown core has gone on long enough, and the residents of Lowertown have put up with incessant noise and honking for 5 straight days. It starts at 5 in the morning and goes on till late into the evening. Yeah.
Okay. Is it just the noise? Is it just the noise, Sandra? Or?
Well, no. Our local businesses, which are the cornerstone of our vibrant community, have had to close for fear of vandalism and intimidation of the staff. Residents have had to put up with seeing swastikas and other horrible insignia while I've attempted to get groceries. Children are living in the downtown core. What does this say to the young children? I mean, this cannot continue.
Okay. What do you want done?
Well, we need political leadership to act now and put an end to this circus. Residents of Lowertown deserve to feel safe in their own community.
Okay. So what kind of action? I mean, do you want the police to move in there and bust it up, or what do you want to see happen here?
Well, we need the streets cleared to near residences, etc. We would like the people that are responsible for the freedom trains or to move on. They've had their say. We really don't want the noise, their noise and their pollution. So if the political leadership can help out, if Ontario and our leader can help us, that'd be great.
Okay. I spoke with the mayor this morning, and the mayor says it's really up to the police, that any kind of enforcement would be up to the police. What do you think of the job Mayor Watson has done so far over handling this so far?
Well, I mean, basically, he said to go home and go. If the police invoke a hard stance, will that give an lead for uprising? We don't want an uprising within our community.
Okay.
It's, just go peacefully. You've had your say, and that's it.
They say they're not going anywhere.
Well, we hope they do.
Okay.
We've listened to them. And we're not sure who everybody is in this downtown core. So where they come from or what their beliefs are.
Okay, but you've had just about enough of it, you're saying?
We've totally had enough of this.
All
yes.
Right. Okay. I thank you for your time, Sandra. All the best to you and your residents. Right. Yep, Sandra at Lowertown, Sandra Milton, Lowertown Community Association. Just, we're checking in. We're still continuing to follow the O'Toole leadership story with the Conservative caucus holding a vote on Aaron O'Toole's leadership, with many questioning if the damage hasn't already been done to Aaron O'Toole and maybe even the Conservative Party, that either he loses this vote outright. We're talking about simple majorities are all that are needed, right? So either he goes down outright or he's so handicapped or kneecapped by the results of the vote that it's just impossible for him to continue. Because if it's close, how can he continue as leader? You mentioned Joe Clark. 40 years ago, Joe Clark gets 66% support from delegates and steps down as leader of what was in the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada because he said that's not good enough. A leader needs a stronger number than that. So is that some sort of benchmark, 66%? If it's not, if it is, it's really not looking good for Aaron O'Toole. Say you squeak by with whatever, 55%. How do you continue to lead the Conservative Party? And all of this has just kind of come out of nowhere very fast, the way this has risen to the forefront. Lots of questions will also be asked. If not Aaron O'Toole, then who? Then who, right? Poilievre. Let's trade O'Toole for Poilievre. One of the things, my Snow in 60 commentary this morning was just how bad the timing is for all of this. It's really a shame that it's happening because this is a time when the country really needs an effective opposition, and it hasn't had an effective opposition. And the country is facing so many serious issues right now. The division here in Ottawa, on the ground in Ottawa being one of them. I mean, the country is so divided right now along ideological lines, left, right, along geographic lines. Quebec is basically doing whatever it wants to do. Going its own way, doing its own thing, without so much as a whimper from anyone in officialdom in Ottawa, from any of the so-called federalists in Ottawa. So many in the West are angry. So many in the West feel Confederation is just not working for them. We're 2 years into the pandemic, and there's so much disruption because of the pandemic. We have labor force disruptions and the wobbly supply chain and the overburdened healthcare system. We have inflation, highest level in 30 years. Record prices for gasoline. Food prices becoming increasingly unaffordable to buy groceries. Interest rates are going up. Housing affordability crisis. $800,000 for a house in the city of Ottawa. $800,000 for a house in the city of Ottawa. And the other crisis is a leadership crisis. And it looks like one leader is going to lose his job because of it. And the fact that Mr. O'Toole hasn't been able to seize on any of these crises or make any political headway at all, maybe that just highlights all the more the need for him to go and make way for someone who can present a reasonable alternative to the governing Liberals. Now, there were news reports this morning that as part of the round of phone calls to try and save his leadership, that he has been telling MPs, I'm open to changing some of my policies. But that has been one of the main criticisms about Erin O'Toole all along, is that he changes policies as often as most people change their underwear. It's a time when the country really needs an effective opposition, and it's just not getting it. The conservatives aren't focused, laser focused on Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. The Conservatives are intent on beating each other up. And that just means it's smooth sailing for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. If O'Toole goes down in flames today, a lot of people are pointing to Poilievre, and they say, there's your next leader. And maybe that's how it all turns out. Maybe. Far from guaranteed. It's far from a sure thing that Mr. Poilievre would do any better with the electorate than Mr. O'Toole did. It's not out of the question. He could do worse because he is so fiercely partisan and because he has spent so much of his political time on the attack. I have no doubt Poilievre could hold the base of the Conservative Party. He will do well with the card-carrying Conservatives. He might even win back a few people who felt abandoned by O'Toole and instead moved over to the PPC. But is Poilievre, here's what you have to think about. Is Poilievre going to win over any blue Liberals, any soft Liberals, any swing voters who are, thinking, well, should I vote for the Liberals or the Conservatives? That is the big unknown for me. I have no doubt Pierre could get 30% of the vote in a general election, but can he get you 35, 36, 37% support? Can he win the suburbs of the GTA? Can he win you seats in Atlantic Canada? Can he get you seats in the suburbs of Greater Vancouver? Can he get you younger voters? Can he get you female voters? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure who would do any better than O'Toole at this. Maybe Peter MacKay, but he doesn't want to take another shot of it from what I hear. Yeah, Stephen Harper. He'd be a great pick. But he's making so much money now, he's never coming back. I don't think any of those old Harper names are ever coming back. Ambrose, Baird, names that sometimes come up. And one of the big unknowns is if today marks the post-O'Toole Conservative Party, what if it's a social conservative becomes the next leader of the Conservative Party? Someone who wants to drag the country back into debates about things like conversion therapy, equal marriage, abortion. Then I think the party's doomed. It'll just be an unelectable party. And if O'Toole does win even a close vote, decides to stick around, then the party's done. It will implode. It will split into factions. And the lesson of the past is when the Conservative Party splits into factions like PCs and Reformers, you all but assure endless Liberal government. So this is a very, very big day in federal politics, and we're all over it. This is the Rob Snow Show, City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit, And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online. And the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it. What we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hey, Pat Aguccione's here. He's the managing editor of the Ottawa Community Voice newspapers, and we're here to talk about city affairs. How are you this week?
I'm good, thanks.
What's the news? Let's get to some city business. What's going on with meetings and this kind of thing? Because as I understand it, there was supposed to be a committee meeting today, but some of the members, councillors, were like, I have no time for this. My attention is on the protests. So.
Well, there was a transportation committee meeting this morning. I think there was only really one significant agenda item on it. There was a vote to
adjourn or whatever, right?
Yeah, adjourn the meeting, and it lost 7-4. That was Councillor Fleury, one of the downtown councillors, wanted it deferred, so it didn't. So they went ahead with it, and only lasted about 25 minutes, half an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So that happened this morning.
Nothing big on.
No, it was just about. I guess ironically, it was about sort of the road safety plan.
The road safety plan, yeah. Right. Okay, yeah. Of all weeks to be discussing that, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, the road safety plan is on the agenda. Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay.
Not a lot of discussion, probably for good reason. So yeah.
Okay. So, what do you think about everything that's gone on this week? It's quite a week in the capital city, Pat.
Well, it is. I mean, and you've lived here for 20, 25 years. I lived here my whole life, and I mean, obviously it's unprecedented what's going on down there. So, I think you wanted to talk about leadership, and I think what people are looking for right now is someone to lead.
Do you think that's been lacking at the city level right now? Or?
I think outwardly it appears that way, that there's really no one sort of taking charge or leading us through this other than the police chief. So I think that's a lot of the frustration out there, and you can especially see it with the downtown councillors like Councillor Fleury and McKenney. I mean, they're sort of looking for someone to do something that they feel isolated. I listened to your show the other day. You had Bob Shirley on. He talked about an
yesterday,
as a tool, for the police to try and get some resolution of this. It seems like the only, idea outside of waiting this thing out. when I heard about the injunction, it reminded me of when I was press secretary to the mayor of the day in 2008, when 1,500 bus drivers were going to, picket in front of the Civic Center during the World Hockey Championship, and they got an injunction for that to stop that from happening. So you wonder with the siege they're under downtown, why they're reluctant to do that now. So
yeah, and in speaking with Bob yesterday, Bob Chiarelli, who's said he's going to be a candidate for mayor. I mean, he said it's not that you have to immediately, go down and start telling people, okay, you've got to go and let's call the tow trucks and haul everybody out of here. But that you use it as a kind of a bargaining chip or leverage is how Bob Chiarelli explained it. But
and I listened to your talkback hour for an hour after his appearance, and a lot of people seem to agree with that. In that, it just seems like the only other idea out there to try to get some. And people are wondering why this is going on so long, and what are they doing to end it? I think you've discussed that. It looks like there may be more of them coming back this weekend.
Maybe.
They've already booked their hotels.
Well, they say they're not going anywhere, right? And whoever's left is pretty hardcore, I think. And I take them at their word if they say they're not going anywhere. But I put this idea of an injunction. I asked the mayor this morning, why don't you have the city lawyers down in a courtroom arguing before a judge that this all needs to come to an end? And this is what the mayor said to me this morning.
Well, that is one of the options that we're looking at, but it also requires, once the paper won't move them out, you'll have to have the police intervene. And that's why the chief has said, all options are on the table, but he has to use his best judgment not to inflame the situation and make it even worse. If you have one person that's been charged with bringing weapons, the chances are pretty good that there are other people that have weapons. And the last thing we need to do is to escalate this protest and this sit-in and this occupation even more.
Doesn't want to escalate things, doesn't want to inflame things, and really defers to the chief of police in these matters.
Right, and that's the process. That's the way politicians are governed. You can't direct the police what to do. But I think what the injunction does, it gives the police that tool that the politicians have endorsed, so to speak. So, but I don't know if it's the answer, but it seems to be the only other idea that's floating out there. And I spend a lot of time on social media, as you do, and there's a lot of people in the city that's the only voice they have is through social media. And the people that they're living downtown, outside in the suburbs, don't get what's going on. But the people down there, if you see some of the video footage from last night, in the middle of the night, there's smoke bombs and horns blowing, still going at 3-4 in the morning. So people are looking for some solution, and they certainly don't see one yet.
Okay. Councillor Deans, in her role as being the chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, does she have to be extra cautious in what she says because she has that role, or?
I think you're dead on there, because that is the role of the Police Services Board, politicians can't be seen to be directing police what to do. So I think, yes, she's being extra careful in what she says and what she's doing. I agree with that, yeah.
Because, I've had the mayor on, and I've had all the people who want to be mayor on, except for her. And we called her, and it's hard to get her on, so...
Yeah, I can only guess from her, kind of between a rock and a hard place.
Rock and a hard place.
Yeah, for her, yeah. But you see it. If you see with the council, there's most of the councillors are sort of reading from the same script, saying, you've been here, we heard you, please leave.
They say.
I'm not sure that's the message that people want to hear.
And then they point to the sign that says, what it says. So anyway, what do you think about how prepared the city was? It is protest city, right? We've been through this before. It was well telegraphed, well choreographed, had a week to get ready for it. Were we ready? Should we have had, say, police or barricades around the War Memorial? Should we have had somebody stationed or whatever at the Terry Fox statue? I don't know if that would have gone into the planning. But we knew that, the mayor in advance of it said on my show, he was like, well, where are they going to go to the washroom? maybe they should have provided some porta potties as they would for other events, but maybe they didn't want to be seen as, giving it approval in any way that this protest, was happening. So I don't know. Like from a planning point of view, from the municipal point of view, what do you think?
It's hard to criticize something that doesn't have a blueprint. If they had put 15 porta potties out or 500, would it have been enough? And like you said, would it have looked like they were endorsing what's going on? I think this is a bit of yes, we have lots of protests in town, but a bit of unprecedented in the nature of it. There doesn't seem to be a leader of it that you can actually have a conversation with to end this thing. So that's why I come down to, back to the injunction. It just seems like that people are looking for some kind of solution. I don't know if that's the solution, but at the very least, it's some stick that the leaders, that the police can use to get this over and done with. The police chief and the mayor have said, all options are on the table. Maybe you need to take that next step rather than hoping that these people leave peacefully.
All right. Hey, Pat, good to hear from you, Pat. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, great stuff. Pat Aguccione is the managing editor with Ottawa Community Voice. He used to work in communications for the city of Ottawa, and he used to work in the mayor's office when Larry O'Brien was the mayor. Okay, I'm away for a few days. Derek Fage is your host of the Rob Snow Show tomorrow and Friday. I will be back on Monday. The Sam LaPrade Show follows the noon news here on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Tune in weekdays starting at 9 on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
The past few years have taught us the This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command.